Stand up, New York Giant fans. Just waiting on Mike. He said he had to get something to eat, so he's running a couple minutes late. So I know he's already a couple minutes late. I don't like to start late. You start talking in the chat. So figured I'd go live, talk a little bit New York Giants football with you guys. Mike will be here any minute, and then we'll obviously recap Week 5. We'll get into Week 6. Looking forward to it. Thank you to everybody for being here. Really do appreciate it. What's going on, Eric Harrison? What's going on, Andrew? What's going on, Crispy? What's going on, Zachary? What's going on, Gideon? What's going on, Simon J. Dog? Like I said, Mike's going to be here any minute. We're going to talk about everything, and we'll talk New York Giants. But I wanted to pop on. I didn't want to keep you guys waiting. I'll answer a couple of your guys' questions before I wait for Mike to get in here. Like I said, we're going to recap Week 5. We're going to talk about Week 6. We got Washington on deck this week, a team that's lost 4 straight. We've lost 5 straight. Something's got to give. They've got a really good defensive line. We've got a not so good offensive line. So that's definitely the thing that you want to keep your eye on in this football game. But I think we'll be able to get after their quarterback with Alex Smith, and we'll see. We'll get Mike's take on it as well. What's going on, Tornado? What's going on, Royal Money? What's going on, Jay? Thank you for popping in the stream. What's going on, Jawad? Gideon, Victory, thank you so much for being here. The Whopperer Feed. Thank you for popping in here, man. Lestat Walton, thank you for being here. Really do appreciate it. Thank you again for being the best supporters on YouTube. And I see what's going on, Afghanistan. What's going on, Assassin? Thank you for being here. Somebody said big game for Daniel Jones this week. I mean, I completely agree. I think every game from here on out is a big game for Daniel Jones. He's got 11 games left, and he's got to improve. And I think we all know that, and we'll talk more about it throughout the stream. We saw some good things from the offense last week. We saw some things we need to continue to improve on, but we definitely saw them open up the playbook. We saw the New York Giants take shots down the field, and, I think that there was some encouraging things, but I think this week will be a good test against the Washington football team, being that they're a better defense than the defense we went up against last week. We'll see if the New York Giants actually have dramatically improved with this offense. I think it's a really good test, and we'll see. Gettleman is finished. Yeah, probably is. He probably is. I would say 90% he's probably finished. If I'm being honest, they're 0-5. I mean, he doesn't have much of a leg to stand on right now. Get this man some likes, please. I appreciate that, Andrew Marchese. If you haven't done so, please spike that like. Thank you guys for being here. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, ring the bell. And thank you guys for being here. We normally do this midday. This is what fits Mike's schedule right now. So we're usually going to do this around 5 o'clock on each other's channels. Thank you for being here. And what's going on, G-Men Tapes? Thanks for popping in the stream. I see Nate's in here. Thank you guys. Terry McLaurin. We're going up against you guys this week, Terry. Should be a really good matchup. James Bradbury's been phenomenal this year for the New York Giants. Probably a Pro Bowl level corner this year, the way that he's played, and he's going up against one of the better wide receivers in football. The football team, that's right, Mike. What's going on, Eric? What's up, Hogfather? How's it going, boss, man? You can call me the Hog. Listen, Mariano, I would take Hogs in every draft until such time they got this offensive line working. So you could definitely call me the Hogfather. Yes, the football team is a legit name. For 1 year it is, Terry McLaurin. It's not going to be a legit name for much longer. You guys are going to have something new next year. Let's see what we got here. There we go. We got Mike here. We got Mike. And what's going on, Mike? You know what? Let's shrink us down real quick. Hold on. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, what up, Chris? How are you? Sorry, I'm
No worries, man. It was just people saying, go live. And I said, I'll bring Mike in. He's got to get something to eat. So I'm glad that you're here. And we got a lot to talk about. Week 5. We're going to recap what happened. Then we got Washington on deck. We'll talk about, the performance of the offense, the defense, everything else. But thanks for coming on the channel, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, we're doing this weekly. I'm enjoying it, and I'm excited to talk to you.
You got a different setting this week.
Yeah, I'm usually at the desk over there, but as we had the internet problems last time, I decided to use the Ethernet cable, which is on a desk on the side of my room. So now I'm in this crappy location, but I'll make the best of it.
All right, so what's going on, Word? Thank you for popping in the stream. So let's jump right into it. Let's talk about this past week against the Dallas Cowboys. And, we talked about it going into the game that we wanted to see the offense open it up, and we wanted to see them take more shots down the field. I want to get your thoughts on the play calling overall in this game from Garrett, from the offense, how you think they looked, and then we'll probably, we'll get into the defense. But give me your thoughts on the offensive play calling and everything else.
It was the best I've seen all year. I think we can agree with that. A lot more creative, in my opinion. Some of the route concepts are still the same. You have the same old curls, the same old like stick routes where they almost throw a pick six on them, like right after the fumble play. Like I think the next passing play almost had a pick six. The linebacker jumped it. Not really a fan of those routes and doing them so much. And I think the Talking Giants guys even tweeted out Daniel Jones' like stats when he's passing like middle of the field, more than 20 yards down. His stats are phenomenal. I have no idea why the Giants aren't trying to pass the ball downfield more. We talked about it. They almost had a big shot with Slayton at the beginning of the third quarter. Unfortunately, it didn't work. But play calling wise, I think it was better. We saw the Engram reverse play. We saw the flea flicker play. A lot more creative, in my opinion, this week. As we talked about, they kind of dumbed down the running game, I feel like, and it's worked in a positive way so far. Devontae Freeman's looked good, rejuvenated in a way, if you will. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with what Jason Garrett did this game. I wouldn't blame him for the loss. I think it's been his best game so far, and hopefully he can build off of that.
Yeah, I think that Jason Garrett, I thought it was, like you said, I think it was his best called game. The creativity was definitely there. There were actually 2 end arounds to Evan Engram. One went for the touchdown, and I was watching your film analysis where I forgot who it was. It was Everson Griffin, I think, where he actually took a good angle on that play. It looked like he was ready for it, but Evan Engram just used his athleticism to break it to the outside, and they called 2 end arounds with Evan Engram. So they definitely showed some creativity. Like you said, the flea flicker, there were a couple of shots they took downfield. The first play coming out in the second half, you saw Daniel Jones try to take a deep shot. He just missed there. Darius Slayton looked like he had a foot on the cornerback. Could have probably went for, if not a touchdown, a very big play. So I like that they came out more aggressively this week. You saw that they continued to try to establish the ground game, at least early on, until such time that Dallas started to stop it. But it was a really balanced attack. That was another thing that I liked. They had 27 run plays to 33 pass plays. I think that's right around where you want to be for a team like this. We don't want to go out there and throw the ball 40, 45 times. So they did pretty much everything I wanted them to do in terms of play calling. They controlled the clock. They beat them by 5 minutes in the time of possession. I think that's probably the first time in like 5 years that we won time of possession 2 weeks in a row. So that's encouraging. So there were definitely some good things to this game on the offensive side of the ball. Of course, we put up more than 9 points. So let's clap it up for that. The Giants had 34 points. So it definitely looked like an improved offense. I think we'll get a better test this week going up against, a good pass rush with the Washington football team. And we all know that our weakness right now is at the tackle spot for the Giants. But I think there were definitely some pros to this game. Now let's jump into the name that everybody wants us to talk about. And that, of course, being Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones in this game didn't throw a touchdown, although he got one called back that you definitely could have probably argued shouldn't have been, with the rub route. I think it was Ratley on that play. And he threw the touchdown to Darius Slayton, but they called it back. So that kind of hurt the stat sheet. But I think he had 220 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Had the costly fumble, which I put a lot more on Andrew Thomas. I don't know your take on that. Andrew Thomas, to me, completely whiffed on that block. He had like a second to throw the football. I thought Andrew Thomas was incredibly underwhelming throughout this entire game. And I'm still on the Thomas bandwagon. It's only been 5 games. I'm going to continue to support the kid. I still think he's going to be a very good tackle. But he was really bad in this game. But I wanted to get your overall thoughts on Daniel Jones throughout the game.
Yeah, he wasn't bad in this game. I think he made some nice plays off script. He had about, I would say, 4 or 5 throws running to his right. There was one play on the final drive to Slayton, I think you guys probably remember, where it looked like he was about to run out of bounds, makes a perfect throw. Slayton came back to the ball, which was smart by him. Of course, the fumble play is what we're going to think about and remember, but I do blame Andrew Thomas for majority of that play. I would say about, 80-90% of that play is on him. Even Wayne Gallman missed a block on that play. One of the cornerbacks came from the bottom of the screen when I was watching the film review, and Wayne Gallman was late to pick him up. So even if Thomas, held his block, he might have been sacked by the cornerback anyway, but that's a different story. But, he didn't play that bad. As I said, the near pick 6 after the fumble, that would have been bad. Thank God they dropped that one. But there were some impressive throws. I came away saying, it wasn't the worst performance in the world. Of course, you expect a little better, but I think for what he's been surrounded with and how the play calling is not creative, and I know it was better this week, but still overall compared to other teams in the NFL, it's still not that creative. I would say it's a step in the right direction, and hopefully, I know we look at the touchdown interception ratio, what's it, 2 to 5 right now? It's not good, but I think if we build off this, it can get better. So do I expect more from a guy that was picked 6th overall? I do personally, honestly, but at the same time, it wasn't like he played like crap. I think he played okay. I expect a bit more for someone drafted as highly as him, but I can live with that game. It wasn't too bad. It
was a step in the right direction. I'll say that. And I already saw somebody in the chat, I think it was Crimson, who said, my God, you people love defending Daniel Jones. I just think we love – I think Mike and myself are pretty much giving the same message. We're saying let's wait out the season and see if he improves over the course of the year. He had a lot
what
of
are you
things
going to do now? Yeah. Like,
what are you going to do now?
Come on.
He had a lot of things to deal with. And I'm going to tell you right now, Mike, we're not getting the first pick. The Jets are getting the first pick.
That's
the New York Jets will be lucky to win 2 games this year. So all the Trevor Lawrence people, maybe it'll happen. Don't bank on it. Okay. So there's a good chance this guy's going to be your quarterback next year. So strap in and hope that he gets better. That's my take on Daniel Jones. And thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. Raheem, man. He says the play where DJ overthrew Slayton. If DJ looked to his left, he had a man wide open. I believe it was number 18, but I'm going to give DJ one more year. Listen, DJ definitely, he's not perfect. He's going to make mistakes. There's no doubt about it. He hasn't played great. That last drive, I want to talk about that, Mike, because I didn't, other than myself, and I don't know if you picked up on this, I didn't really see any other Giants YouTuber talk about it that much. And maybe you did. Maybe I missed it. But the thing that didn't even worry, but the thing that really made me upset that last drive was his clock management skills. You've got a minute to go in the game. You got the ball at about the 45. You're 15 to 20 yards away from field goal range for Gano the way that he was kicking. Let's clap it up for him, by the way. He played phenomenal.
he was great.
He was great. And Dallas has 3 timeouts, and you had 20 seconds on the play clock, and he snaps the ball. If you're Daniel Jones in that spot, and I don't know if this is on Judge, I don't know if it's on Garrett, or I don't know if it's on Jones, you got to tell your quarterback there, you got to let that clock tick down. You got to make Dallas either use their timeout or take it down to 40 seconds. You got to be better in the clock management department there. You gave Dallas an extra 20 seconds to go down the field and kick that game-winning field goal.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. I watched your reaction. I watched at least part of it. And I do remember you saying that, and I meant to go back and watch. Of course, I forgot to do it, but I believe you. And you know what? They probably should have done it because, fourth quarter, 1 minute to go, a very crucial part in the game. You want to make them use, as you said, they have 3 timeouts, and our timeout management was kind of crappy as well. I think we used our second timeout with 14 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I wasn't too happy about that. Luckily, it didn't really come back to bite them too badly. But yeah, you probably have to run the clock down in that situation, force Dallas to use one. They win the game basically on the final play. So obviously we could have used that time, not saying it would have changed the game too much, because I think Gallup caught that ball with 20 seconds left or so. But still, it could have changed the outcome of the game possibly. And of course, you want to have good clock management. That's part of the reason, I expected the Giants not to have this problem this year because Joe Judge is not controlling the offense or the defense. He's kind of just overseeing everything. And you would expect him, Daniel Jones, to be on the same page and say, hey, let's try and take as much time off this clock as we possibly can. We didn't see it, but hopefully in the future that thing gets better. Yeah,
exactly. The timeout the one timeout I thought was on Jones. The other one I thought was on the coaching staff. They called a defensive timeout in the late third quarter when Dallas was kind of just moving and you just wasted it. I completely disagree with that timeout. First half, that's different. But in the second half, when you're trailing, you're going to need as many timeouts as you possibly could get down the stretch. And Dallas scored a touchdown the next 2 plays anyway. And the second timeout, I think Daniel Jones, the play clock was winding down. So they wasted a timeout there. So I agree. The timeout usage was poor in this game. Overall, though, I thought Judge and Garrett did a good job. The fake field goal, which was negated by the penalty, that was a brilliant call. I mean, and I think that was probably on Judge, being that he's got the special teams background. I love that call. It showed guts, it showed balls, and it definitely worked out. It just the fluke penalty there by Fleming negated it.
Yeah, I think it was a penalty. I think when you look at the official rules, I think the guys have to be set for a second, and he definitely was not set for a second. So I think probably what happened there, maybe Riley Dixon saw that Evan Engram was uncovered, might have got a bit too excited, snapped the ball a bit too quickly. But also, Fleming was the last guy to get set. I don't know if that's by design or not, if he was just late getting there. But yeah, that's a play where the Giants should have had 4 extra points. And of course, in the game where you lose by 3, those kind of things come back to kill you. And I said a lot in my film breakdown, if you watch the whole thing, I said the Giants shot themselves in the foot a lot this game between the Ratley mistake, the Blake Martinez missed tackle on the final drive, which is huge, a few other things as well. They definitely shot themselves in the foot. So I hate blaming the refs for a loss like this completely. But at the same time, I guess the officiating wasn't that great. We can talk about that missed holding call as well on the second to last play for the Cowboys. I clearly think he was held. I mean, the guard had his right arm basically around one of the around BJ Hill's neck basically, and it wasn't called. So, and as we saw from the broadcast, the ref was reaching down for that flag, and then you see nothing. And I'm expecting okay, Gallup caught the ball, but it's coming back, right? And then we see nothing. I'm like, what's going on here? Because the ref was clearly reaching for the flag, and he came up with nothing. So I was really surprised by that, kind of disappointed, but I believe I heard somewhere on a podcast that the refs are trying to cut down on holding calls this year. I guess it has something to do with that. And as I said, if it was in years past, the Giants probably get this call, but the NFL wants to see more scoring, more points, obviously, because the fans like that stuff. But in 2020, we didn't get the flag, unfortunately.
Yeah, that holding call. And again, I'm like you. I hate to blame the referees. And you know, and I'm not blaming the referees. At the end, it was a very poorly officiated game. Don't get it twisted, Giants fans. And we probably would have won the game had a couple of those things not happened. But at the end of the day, this is a team that needs to learn how to win football games. They had opportunities to win this game, and they had a lot of stupid penalties themselves throughout the game. Nick Gates, I think, got called for 2 penalties during the game. They had stupid penalties throughout that football game. We hurt ourselves. We didn't make plays when they needed to be made. Yes, we definitely didn't get help from the Zebras. Don't get it twisted. But we had opportunities to win that game, and we just didn't do it. I'm not gonna say that it was like the referees were the main reason we lost that game. JB12, man, thank you very much. He says Darius Slayton is a superstar. Huge game. All right, we might have to calm him down a little bit. I love Darius Slayton. I love Darius Slayton. I'm not going to say he's a superstar because I think you're going to see games like that. I think he's a good receiver. I think he's going to have close to 1,000 yards this year because I think he's going to have another 2 or 3 games like that. And he's really by far our best option in the passing game outside of Evan Engram, which I kind of want to talk to you about him as well, how they've utilized him in the passing game as of late. But Slayton played a great game. Slayton made a couple of really nice catches. He made 2 or 3, where he dragged his toes along the sideline. Slayton had a really good game. Slayton's a very good wide receiver. I'm not going to say he's a superstar.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I would say, I'm trying to think of NFL receivers where I would put him. I don't think he's a top 20 receiver, but if you want to say he's somewhere between the 20th and 30th best receiver in the league, I can get on board with that. Looking at his numbers now, 8 catches, 129 yards. Did have a drop in there. I have to include that as well. It would have made it a second and 1. That drive ended up being a 3 and out, so that kind of hurt them. But aside from that play, I mean, it could have been a bigger day, of course, if the Ratley play wasn't called. Had that really nice
and the ball that Jones missed him.
Yeah, that one. Oh, yeah, this could have been a 200-yard day if he hit that one. What was I going to say? Now I forgot what I was going to say. The one-handed catch he had on the wheel route, that was a great catch as well.
Catch.
It was funny because he dropped one with 2 hands, a little before that, his previous target. Then he's out here catching the ball with 1 hand. It's all right, whatever works for you, we'll take it. But he's looked great. I mean, for the value they got him at 5th or 6th round, I always forget what round it was. It's 5th, right? I'm pretty sure because
5th round. Yeah. They actually got him with the comp pick, I think, in the 5th round.
Yeah, yeah. So he's been a phenomenal value so far. I would hold off on the quote unquote superstar talk because when you're thinking superstar, I think of Julio Jones and what Antonio Brown used to be. I'm trying to think who else would be a superstar receiver.
Odell Beckham, what he used to be.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't wait in that company yet.
The other thing I'll say, and I don't want to rain on the Darius Slayton parade because I like Slayton. I like Slayton a lot. Odell Beckham has not done much with the Cleveland Browns. He played Dallas the week before. He went off. So you also got to take into account the opponent we were going up against. I think that had a lot to do with it. I expected Slayton to have a big game, and he did. And like you said, he could have had an even bigger game. But I want to see him to continue to progress and be more consistent. It's kind of what I feel about this entire offense. I need to see more consistency out of the players, whether it's Daniel Jones, whether it's Slayton, whether it's Engram, whether it's the offensive line, so on and so forth. Raheem, man, thank you very much. He says, want the Giants to pick up Gallup this offseason. Is Gallup a free agent this year? Coming up.
I think I've heard that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he might be. I'll effort that real quick, but I'm pretty sure he is.
It wouldn't be a bad. I mean, obviously, depending on the price, it wouldn't be a bad pickup. If Garrett was still here, he's familiar with him as a wide receiver. He's a guy that's, I think he's pretty tall, right, Gallup?
He has 1 year left on his contract, so that is a lie. He's a free agent 2022, so we're a year away.
Yeah. So and Dallas ain't trading him to us. We know that. I mean, I would like a receiver. I think we definitely need to add a receiver this year, whether it's in free agency or whether it's in the draft. And a receiver like that could definitely go a long way. And JB says Andrew Thomas is an all-pro right tackle. We need to move him. Let's talk a bit more about Andrew Thomas. Give me your thoughts on Thomas throughout this game and some of the things he needs to work on.
Yeah, I read some Mark Colombo quotes about him today, and to sum it all up, he basically said the speed of this game is different. I really don't think Thomas is a lost cause. I've seen people say, he's Eric Flowers 2.0, and it just makes me roll my eyes. But I really think that with time, as Mark Colombo said the same thing, he will get better because I look at it as a technique issue. I don't think it's just the guy's flat out trash. His feet are quick enough. I just think that the problem with him right now is, and I'm not some offensive line expert, but when he goes for his initial punch, he's like missing guys half the time. Like that, you can't live in the NFL as a tackle if you're missing guys on your initial punch. It's not going to work out. So I really think if they fix his hands and get the hand placement right, I think things will be a lot better. And maybe by the end of the year, we'll realize this kid's really good. Of course, right now he's been, I would say, probably a bottom 5 tackle in the league, which is terrible. And we see these other rookies playing well, like, Wills and who else? Becton, when he was playing Wirfs as well. It kind of like discourages you. But at the same time, sometimes guys just need more game action, and he's not used to this speed of play. And we've seen many times where he was beat to the edge. A guy tries to fake like he's going out, then goes in, and he doesn't react to it fast enough. He has a tough time squaring his shoulders and getting in front of guys. That stuff can be fixed in my mind. I really think it's a technique issue. I just don't think the guy is bad. He was way too good in college for me to just think he's going to flame out after 1 year. So I would hold off on moving him to right tackle. I want that to be Matt Parrott's job. Hopefully he plays a lot the second half of the year. But I would give Thomas all the chances in the world at left tackle. You're not going anywhere this year. Let him develop there, and hopefully you find your franchise left tackle that way.
So that's a really good point. And one thing I will say, he's got one more touchdown catch than all those guys.
Oh,
or
yeah.
one more 2-point conversion catch.
Yeah. Same thing.
but no, all kidding aside, though, here's another thing I'll say, and I have to think about it. I'm pretty sure this is right. Out of all those tackles that you mentioned, the top 4, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to be realistic and look at all the factors. He's playing in a system that the quarterback that he has never played in before. That has something to do with it too, probably. He's not known to be the greatest guy in terms of pre-snap reads. Some of that might go on Daniel Jones, and I'm not trying to rain on Daniel Jones and blame Daniel Jones for Andrew Thomas's deficiencies, not to mention he's playing with other offensive linemen that we're in a completely new blocking scheme. We went from more of a zone approach last year to more of a power blocking scheme. I still think Andrew Thomas is going to be fine. I'm not going to say he's going to be elite. I hope he is. He could be. But I still think he's going to be fine. I'm not too worried about Andrew Thomas. I still think he's going to be a good professional tackle. Now, maybe you do move him over the right side if you go out and draft a guy like Penny Sewell next year. That's a possibility. I think then you would do it. But if you don't do something like that, I think Andrew Thomas is going to stay on the left side, and we hope that we can develop Matt Parrott.
Yeah, definitely. They drafted him in April to be the franchise left tackle. You don't give up on that 5 games into the season. You know what I mean? So give him all the time you need. If the Giants were a team competing for the playoffs this year and he was really holding you back as a team, then you can argue maybe benching him for a little bit or moving him to that right side would make sense. But a team like this that's developing and just trying to get their young players better, I don't really see where it helps the team in the future to bench a guy like Andrew Thomas right now.
Yeah, no, there's no way you can bench Andrew Thomas.
Yeah.
Zach, man, thank you very much. I might be hype, Mack. I might be hyping Mack up, but I think he might be a diamond in the rough. All right, let's talk about Mack. The Giants called him up. I don't know how you could say he's a diamond in the rough. We haven't even seen him play yet, but I know people are excited about him because he's a receiver. And everybody gets excited when you see new wide receivers. Out of Ohio State, went to a big program, didn't get an opportunity to play much there. I think his career high is like 350 yards receiving in a season. What do you think about Austin Mack? Do you think he can make any kind of impact here for the New York Giants?
I was a fan of him, actually. I really was hoping he'd make the team. Technically, he did on the practice squad. And it's funny, I think Ratley got demoted, right, or sent to the practice squad because
I think they waived him.
They waived him completely because of that pick play, probably. I mean, yeah. I will say this. At least the Giants are holding players accountable, which I like. But for Austin Mack, he's a pretty big body. I'm trying to think. I mean, he might be 6'1". I think he could be a good receiver, honestly. As you said, didn't have a season in college where it was like a wow type of season. But in his limited targets, I think he was pretty good. He's a solid route runner, in my opinion. He has good hands, and he has size. And I think the Giants definitely need that right now. I'm not saying this will end up being a Victor Cruz 2.0 type story, but can he be a guy as a third wide receiver or fourth wide receiver that can help? Definitely. I think he played special teams at Ohio State as well, so he can help in that category. I think compared to the other undrafted free agents we have, he was my favorite one at receiver. Ben Victor was another guy that I liked based on the size. One of my friends watches every Ohio State game. You put it perfectly. Sometimes it looks like Ben Victor has never played football before, and sometimes he looks phenomenal. So that's kind of, what you get with him. But a guy like Austin Mack, he just seems like a consistent guy. And if they give him some opportunities, I'm sure he'll be fine. So I'm actually excited to watch him, and hopefully he gets on the field this week.
Yeah, I'm hoping they give him an opportunity over C.J. Board. We know what C.J. Board is. I'd much rather see Mack out there. We'll see if they actually do that. Maybe they start to slowly integrate him into the system. He's obviously not going to play over, Slayton or Tate, but I'd like to see him get a bit of an opportunity, and we'll see if he can create some separation. I'm excited to see him play if he gets an opportunity to play. I think they called him up 2 weeks ago also, and he never got an opportunity. Yeah. So I mean, hopefully he gets an opportunity. I'm not going to get super excited until such time I actually see him out on the football field running routes and hopefully making some plays for the New York Giants. I kind of wanted to talk about Evan Engram, and then I'll get to your question, JB12. I don't like the way they're using Evan Engram in this offense. And part of it for me might be because they don't feel like they can hold blocks. Like everybody's complaining, maybe that's the reason. But it seems like they're using him the exact same way, kind of like that they use Witten at the end of his career. And I feel like that's something more that you would use Caden Smith for, like those 6 or 7 or 8 yard check down routes. I want to see Engram used more up the field. He's our biggest big play asset. You haven't seen it since week 1 against the Steelers. I don't like it. I want to see him used more kind of like a wide receiver, I guess, in a way, because that's kind of what he is. He's a hybrid. I don't like the way they're using Evan Engram.
I agree. And I don't know if you watched the Steelers game or not. We see a guy like Chase Claypool, similar build, absolutely feasted on like 4 touchdowns or even almost had 5 in that game. Similar body types for these guys. I think maybe Claypool's a bit bigger. But I'm thinking to myself, and people have said this a lot, like, do you move him to wide receiver? I mean, the way the Giants are using him, and they don't even want to use him as a blocker anymore, which I guess I agree with, maybe you actually make that switch. And I was always against it because I'm like, look, you drafted him as a tight end. He's learned that position his whole life. Just keep him there. But the way they're using him now, it's like you might as well try him at receiver. And I agree. Like, the only time, like, they really seem to target him is like misdirection bootleg plays. And like, he's the only guy running across the field by himself. And like, those are just short, like, air yard type plays. It's not deep down the field. So to me, it bothers me because as we always said, once Barkley went down, who's the most talented player for the skill positions? I mean, it's Evan Engram by far. So like, why not try to use that? Like, he's a guy that I think has a chance to be a trade piece in a few weeks whenever the trade deadline is. But if the Giants actually want to utilize him and get the most out of him, they're not doing it right now. I just feel like they're wasting his talent, which is also part of the reason I want to trade him, because if you're not going to use him, like, might as well get a pick for him. But, it makes no sense the way they're using him. As you said, it's like Jason Witten. And when you have a guy who ran like a 4.4 40, you should not be using him the same way a guy like Jason Witten, who probably ran like a 5.1 at some point in his career towards the end. Yeah. So I just don't get it. I don't know if Jason Witten's stuck in his ways. Joe Judge talked about the round peg and the square hole thing, whatever. If that's true, you have to use them in a different way because they're not using them to his strengths right now. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I'd like to see him use more in the. They did in the Steelers game. He got called for the offensive pass interference, but those are the types of routes that I want to see him used in. I want to see him use more down the field. They've been creative. They've tried to pitch him the ball in the run game. You saw that in the game where he fumbled, and then a couple times this game. But I got to see him use more down the field. He's got to be more of a big play threat. JB, man, thank you very much. Who was the safety that kept getting roughing penalties? Is that Colbert? Was that Adrian? Yeah, Adrian, they used Colbert. Let's talk about that, by the way. What the hell? What happened to Julian Love? They don't play him. He didn't have 1 sack the entire game.
I don't know. I liked Love, and I just, I'll admit, Love wasn't too impressive this year, but to bench him for Adrian Colbert, I didn't really get it. I mean, the guy's a big hitter. I get it. But, like, other than that, what does he really do for you? I feel like Julian Love, this might have been for his consequence in the Cooper Cup play the week before. Maybe they're trying to teach him some type of lesson. But I really feel he's the best guy that's going to help you on the field. Like, maybe they could have benched him for a quarter or something like that. But to bench him for the whole game basically seemed a bit extreme. I don't know if they wanted to try something different. But I just don't think Colbert's the answer. I like Julian Love more. I hope they go back to him because I wasn't too impressed with what I saw. It was nice to see Jabril Peppers on another note get in there for a little bit. He looked good on his limited snaps, I'll admit that. But, I didn't really understand the whole benching part. Colbert wasn't too impressive. I don't really think he's the future answer at safety either. So hopefully they go back to Julian Love.
Yeah, I think Colbert had ties to Patrick Graham, if I'm not mistaken. I think I remember reading that when we first hired. I could be wrong on that, but
he was in San Fran. I know that. That's all I know about him. Okay,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm getting him confused with another player. But I didn't like seeing that. You didn't see Julian Love out there much. I don't think he played that much the week before either, if I'm not mistaken. I know that he came up with an interception a couple of weeks ago, but they have not been using Julian Love at all. And that's gonna kind of transition us to the defensive side of the field. Ty, man, thank you very much. He says Mack over Tate. Do you see any way Washington football team destroys us? I can't say Mack over Tate yet. I mean, Tate's still a professional receiver. I can't say that. And I want to see Mack get an opportunity to play, but I can't say that. Do I see any way that the Washington football team destroys us? Yeah. I'm going to say yes. I'm not picking it. I think the Giants are actually going to win this game. We'll talk more about this game as we go along. But, yeah, I mean, their biggest strength is one of our biggest weaknesses. They have a very good pass rush. Our tackles have struggled. So if we're not able to pass protect and Chase Young sacks Daniel Jones 4 times in this game, like they were able to do against the Eagles where they had 7 or 8 sacks, there's going to be fumbles. They're going to get turnovers, and they could dominate us in this game. So could I see it? Absolutely. Do I think it'll happen? No. I actually think the Giants stand a very good chance to win this football game.
The first question about Golden State and Austin Mack, I don't think it's time yet. I think if you're in the final month of the season and things are really bad here and the NFC East is kind of taken off and there's no chance at a playoff spot, then I would say yeah. But hopefully they trade Golden State in a few weeks, honestly. But right now, no, I don't think it's the right time. I think, as you said, Tate's still a good professional. He doesn't have the same juice that he used to. He doesn't really have like that yards after catch ability that he once did when he was amazing. But I still wouldn't put him behind a guy like Austin Mack, who's unproven. But yeah, for this game, it'd be really hard to see Washington blowing us out. I know you said it's possible, and I probably should say it's possible based on what happened with the 49ers third strings a few weeks ago, because I guess anything can happen with the Giants. But at the same time, I watched that game a lot. It was on Red Zone, I guess, because Alex Smith made his return and they were tuning into that game a lot. They looked awful. I really don't think they're that good of a team at all. I know their defensive line and even some of their linebackers are pretty good, and I am afraid of that Chase Young, Andrew Thomas matchup. But I agree with you. I don't want to pick the Giants because I know that I'm going to feel like a fool once they lose that game. But like for some reason, when I look at these teams on paper, I'm just like, yeah, there's no reason the Giants should lose this game. And I think they're actually favored by 3.5 points this week. So like, Vegas thinks we're going to win. I think if this is a game the Giants lose, I think it's time to get really concerned because I really think this is a game they should win. And I'm never optimistic about the Giants winning. The last time I did was week 2 and they almost won, but still like the last few weeks I've kind of been saying they're probably not going to win. This week though, against Washington, who look, nothing really scares me for them offensively. I like their running back, Antonio Gibson out of Memphis. I liked him out of college, but outside of McLaurin, who are you scared of on that team? Like, I can't name another receiver. Steven Sims, is Dontrell Inman there? Like, I'm not really afraid of it.
Gandy Golden, nah.
Yeah, Logan Thomas at tight end gets 4 targets a game with 1 catch. I'm not afraid of that type of stuff, So offensively, they're nothing to me. And I know they have, one good cornerback and Fuller, and then the rest is not that good in my opinion. Of course, Landon Collins is still there. But yeah, it's not a scary team. I really think the rosters are somewhat close. And I think if the Giants can outcoach them and they get a turnover-free game from their quarterback, I really think it's a game they should win.
Yeah, I honestly think we're going to win this week. Spoiler alert, guys. Yeah, that's my pick this week. I think the New York Giants are going to win this week, but I will never rule out the possibility of that just because they do have a good pass rush. That's the strength of that football team. JB, man, thank you very much. Would you rather keep Leo or Tomlinson? I don't know if you've been asked this on my channel before, but I get asked this a lot. I'll let you answer that first, and then I'll speak over it.
That is interesting. Wow. Honestly, I think Leo. Here's the thing. I think Leo is the better football player, but the problem is he thinks he's worth $16 million a year, which doesn't sit right with me, obviously. So when I'm, thinking of it from the Twitter GM chair, as we call it, if I'm making the decision here and it's between Dalvin Tomlinson for 11, 12 million a year or Leonard Williams for 16, 17 million dollars a year, I say to myself, is there really a difference between the way those guys play that is really a $5 to $6 million difference? And I would say probably not. I would probably take the cheaper option between those guys. Maybe that's a bad way to look at it, but at the same time, I really don't think those guys are that different. I think maybe Leonard Williams will get some more pressure on pass plays, but from an overall impact standpoint, I don't think it's worth the extra $6-7 million you'd have to pay one guy over the other. So I'd probably pick Tomlinson based on the contract.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And if it comes to a trade, Leonard Williams would get you a lot more than a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson, which we talked about, I think, last week, because not a lot of teams are going to go out there and try to pay a premium for a guy that's exclusively a nose tackle. So I think Leonard Williams is more tradable, and I think he's going to cost a lot more. So I'd probably lean that way myself, especially when you look at the Giants roster and you look how they have a lot of depth at that position. We've seen even Austin Johnson has come in and played pretty well for the Giants in limited snaps. B.J. Hill has played decent when given the opportunity this year. Dexter Lawrence is obviously an emerging player for this football team. So I tend to agree with you. I think I agree exactly with what you said. I think Leonard Williams is the better player, but I think he's going to cost a lot more. And if you're looking to trade one, Leonard Williams is going to get you a lot more in the trade market as well. So if I had to pick one, I would lean Dalvin Tomlinson myself.
Definitely, yeah. I would say though, I think at least one of them is not going to be here next year. I don't see a scenario where, I don't think both are here. I will say that though.
There's no way. Simon, man, thank you very much. He says, out here in Amish smoking big doinks in Amish. What? Is that like a song that I don't know about?
Not that I heard of.
Zach Phillips wants to know our thoughts on Ryan Lewis. Ryan Lewis has been surprised. We talked about him last week. He played a really good game last week. This week, he played okay. I mean, I know he gave up the catch to, I think it was Gallup on the sideline to win the game. It was actually pretty good coverage. It was a phenomenal catch. It was great ball placement by Andy Dalton. I think Ryan Lewis has played as good as you could hope for a guy that you basically picked up off the scrap heap. Do I think he's going to be a cornerback 2 for this team in the future? I'm not banking on that. I still think we need to address that position in the offseason, whether it's in free agency or whether it's in the draft. But he's been adequate, I guess. He's been mediocre, which is more than I could have hoped for a guy that we didn't even know much about up until a week ago.
Yeah, I think adequate and serviceable are probably the words you would use for him. Yeah, he's been a pretty nice surprise. I mean, the Gallup play, as I went over, the coverage is as good as it gets. I think he might have tumbled right as that ball got there, which might have hurt him. There was one play on the Zeke touchdown, the longer one, when he was like untouched. Ryan Lewis took an awful angle. If you watch my film review, you know what I'm talking about. It was not a good showing whatsoever on that play. But aside from that, I really, can't look at him in a negative sense. Really, the only like big plays we gave up in the passing game, I feel like, were CeeDee Lamb catches over the middle of the field against zone defense. Like, other than that, it wasn't like the corners were getting burnt. Bradbury basically locked down Cooper. What do you have, one catch this whole game? I mean, actually not one, but he had that last one later.
He almost had a pick six too.
Bradbury. Almost, yeah, definitely. That would have changed the whole game completely. But I think he played well, Bradbury. And for Ryan Lewis, I mean, I'm kind of happy with him right now. I'm satisfied. And I do hope at one point in the year, especially if they stick with Colbert at safety, which who the hell knows what they're going to do. I do hope that Julian Love maybe gets an outside cornerback chance. I've always talked about that. I really thought he would be one of those guys that play cornerback 2 this year, aside from Bradbury. I think he has the skill set to do it. Did it in college at a very high level. And if you're going to flat out bench the guy and say he can't play safety, then how about we try him at cornerback? It can't hurt. I hope they do it, but we'll see if he gets back at safety or not. But I do think he can play cornerback 2 if he's asked.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. Absolutely. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the defense this week. And obviously the defense had their best effort the week before. And this week we knew they were going to struggle. I mean, if you're being real, you knew that they were going to struggle going up against Dallas. They got a high-powered offense. Obviously Dak went down, hopefully, he comes back next year and he's okay. But what disappointed me most with this defense this week was the run defense. The run defense has been underwhelming all year. But this week, and I know traditionally Dallas is a unbelievable running football team. I get that. But the strength of our defense is supposed to be the defensive line, and we're supposed to be decent against the run. And some of the things I've said in prior weeks, when we give up running yards, a lot of it happened in the fourth quarter because we wear down. This week, you didn't have that excuse. We won by 5 minutes in the time of possession, and they dominated us from start to finish with a banged-up offensive line. I think they were missing 2 starters. And Zeke, every time he touched the ball, 5 yards, 6 yards. Pollard, 4 yards, 5 yards. It was just they only had 130 yards rushing, but I don't think they had a carry for under 2 or 3 yards the entire game. We couldn't stop the run at all throughout this entire game. I was very discouraged by that. In terms of the pass defense, I thought you did about as good as you could hope for against a team like this, but the running defense was really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coming into the week, I said, I know they held the Rams to 17, but I said to myself, or I said to people on YouTube, I don't think there's any way the Giants hold the Cowboys to under 24 points. That's kind of an unrealistic expectation. And I think you said it in your post-game reaction as well, and you just said it now. There wasn't a carry below 3 yards, but there wasn't a carry above 8 yards, I think the number you used was. And that's actually true. Every single carry, 5, 6, 7 yards. And of course, I looked at Zeke's stats at the end. He finished with 19 for 91, and Tony Pollard was 6 for 30. So that's not good enough. I mean, as we said before, the strength of this team is supposed to be the run defense. You have this good defensive line. You have Blake Martinez now. What's going on here? It should be better. They've had their moments this year in the fourth quarter, as you mentioned, where things start to break down. But this was, as you said, an entire game, it seemed like, of just being worn down via the run game. It opened up their pass game as well. You can't have that. I know stopping the run isn't the most important thing in football these days, but still, if you're going to run for 6 yards a clip, it's going to kill you eventually. So that's kind of what happened there. Passing defense was pretty good. I mean, as we said, Bradbury, phenomenal. I thought Darnell Holmes was pretty good in this game, had that nice pass breakup in the end zone on the first drive for the Cowboys. But really, the only thing that killed them was the zone defense. And I think the Cowboys, I said this in the film review, might have seen something on tape where they saw when the Giants are in zone, the entire middle of the field is open. And I think that's where Dak Prescott was looking every time. Prescott would get the ball, kind of look off the middle, look left or right, then go back to the middle, see it was wide open, hit CeeDee Lamb like 3 or 4 different times for a nice gain. So the Giants might have to tighten that up a bit. But really, outside of that, for individual cornerback play, I wasn't really too discouraged with anything. I thought they played pretty well in this game.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head with that. CeeDee Lamb, so many times he was wide open over the middle, nobody there for days. And, maybe that had something to do with the fact that the Giants were trying to sell out to stop the run. I don't know, but they completely destroyed us in that 15 to 20 yard range with CeeDee Lamb over the middle. You saw it at least 2 or 3 times throughout the game. So, yeah, it's a really good point you brought up there. Cock Lobster, man, what a name, by the way, Cock Lobster. He says, who would you buy or sell before the trade deadline? I'm not buying anyone, Mr. Lobster, because we're not a team that should be buying anyone right now. We're a team that's 0-5. We're not going to the playoffs. So I don't see why we would ever buy unless it was for a wide receiver that's under a really cost-effective deal for the next 3 years. Then maybe something like that makes sense. But outside of that, I'm not buying. In terms of selling, I say it all the time. To me, there's 2 primary guys that could get you at least a decent price tag, and that's Leonard Williams and that's Evan Engram. I don't really see anybody else on this team that's going to get you anything more than maybe a 5th or 6th round pick that you'd be willing to trade. I mean, Saquon Barkley's got the injury. Is there anybody? Maybe a guy like Jabril Peppers, but do you see anybody else on this team that could get you anything more than maybe a 4th round pick at best?
No. I was thinking Marcus Golden, but that's like a 6th or 7th in return. 4th round pick. No, Leonard Williams maybe, if you mentioned that. But
yeah, Leonard Williams and Engram. Yeah. I think those are the only 2 guys that could get you anything decent at the trade deadline.
Nah, yeah, we don't really have too much to sell here, unfortunately. I said in the previous video, I would be open to selling Sterling Shepard. I know some people might not like that idea, but based on his injuries, and I don't think Shepard's ever going to reach the level of stardom in this league. He's a solid number 2 receiver in the slot mostly. That's his natural place, at least. If the Giants wanted to sell him and got a decent pick, like a 4th or 5th, which I don't think they would get it, but if they did, I would do that personally. But I don't know who, for people they would buy. For receiver, at least, I don't think it would make sense. They gave away their 7th round pick for Yadam, so that's already out the window. He would say 6th round pick for John Ross from the Bengals. Even I wouldn't want to do that. I said Deshaun Hamilton from the Broncos could be interesting, but even then, I don't know if I want to give up picks for these guys. I don't want to give away these assets. I would take them on my team. I don't want to give away the picks for them though. So. Yeah, I don't really think I would buy anybody right now. This should be more of a selling team. But as you mentioned, Peppers and Engram and as I said, Shepard, Leonard Williams, I think those are the main guys to sell. Even Marcus Golden Tate as well. There are guys to sell, but I think in most cases it doesn't really make sense to buy people right now.
Listen, if I get a 6th round pick for Golden Tate, I'm taking it. And it's not a knock on Tate. We're cutting him next year anyway, in my opinion. If we get a 6th round pick for Sterling Shepard, I'm taking it. If I could get rid of that contract, the guy's going $11 million against the cap next year. I know a lot of people love Sterling Shepard. He's a fan favorite. The guy's injured all the time. I would do it. I would just to get rid of that contract. I would do it. I could draft a wide receiver in the 2nd round to replace him. I don't know if that'll happen because he's banged up. I don't even know if he's going to be healthy by the time the trade deadline comes around. So I don't think it's going to happen. But if you could get rid of some of these contracts, I think you do it. That's just my opinion. Golden Tate, I would look to trade more so than Sterling Shepard, though. Yanni, man, thank you very much. He says, once McKinney returns Logan Ryan back to cornerback 2, we set. I'm excited to see McKinney. And what's going on, Scotty H, man? Thanks for popping the stream. What's up, White Lotus? What's going on, Terry McCorn? I'm excited about McKinney coming back. How do you think they're going to utilize him in this defense? I mean, what position do you think he'll primarily be used at with the New York Giants?
I would still say free safety because I don't see Peppers being a free safety type, but I really think he's going to be everywhere. I think if there's a really good tight end they're facing, they might try and put him on the good tight end all game, like a Zach Ertz type of guy they might play. But I think he'll be everywhere. I really think they'll utilize him in just about every role possible. They might use him in the slot at times because he has that build for it. He has the quickness for it as well. I'm really excited for him. I think he can make plays in the box. We saw that on tape at college. He can do everything. So I'm actually really excited. When he went down, it was a really big missing piece of this defense. And you talk about the how much better a guy like McKinney is as compared to a guy like Colbert, it's night and day. So like I think he'll help this team a lot more than people realize, as I said in the past, and I'm excited to see him play. But as I said, though, if he's not 100%, don't rush him back. It isn't worth it right now. If it's any risk of further injury, I'd rather wait till next year. But if he's 100%, the past injury is not up for risk, I would say bring him back, and I think he'll make a difference to this defense in a positive way.
I can't wait to see him play. He's one of the guys I'm most excited about for the rest of the year. The other thing I want to talk about was Carter going down. So now Lorenzo Carter, obviously a very unfortunate injury, torn Achilles, so he's done. And hopefully he comes back and, he's a good player next year. Who knows? But that's not good. O'Shane Ximines is on the IR. What do you do right now at the edge rusher position? My take on it is I want to see these young guys play. I want to see Carter Coughlin play. I want to see Cam Brown get an opportunity to play. Obviously, you're still going to go with Golden and Fackrell, but I want to see these younger players start to get integrated into the lineup. I know the Giants were looking at some potential free agents that they could bring in. I'd much rather develop, or at least attempt to develop, some of these 6th and 7th round picks to see if they could be a part or a piece of this defense going forward.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. I'm excited for Cam Brown. I think he has that build where, he's a physical freak and maybe he can turn into something. As I mentioned, I'm not the biggest Carter Coughlin fan, but he is younger. So, like, if they want to play him, I'm not against it. O'Shane Ximines I love, but he's out right now in the IR for at least a couple more weeks, so we'll have to wait and see about him. Golden, I mean, look, he's been all right this year. He got like another cleanup sack, which he's good at last week. And Fackrell has been great. I would keep him on the field because he's been one of their best outside linebackers this year. But for younger guys, yeah, I think Cam Brown, as I mentioned, definitely a guy that I think has a lot of potential. Throw him in there. If he might be raw, there might be some mistakes at first, but like as I said, you have nothing to lose. Maybe wait a few weeks before it happens, like maybe after the trade deadline. If Golden's hypothetically traded, then maybe throw Cam Brown in there a bit more, Carter Coughlin as well. But yeah, don't bring in somebody who's going to be like a veteran that's not really worth it right now. As you said, just develop the younger guys. Play for next year. Well, not play for next year, but try and develop guys for next year. And hopefully we find another pass rusher. And for Lorenzo Carter, it's very unfortunate. I mean, this is probably going to be a new GM next year. This, just like the what's his name, Connolly situation this year, can be a surprise cut if he doesn't heal the right way, like they thought Connolly didn't. Then this could be a surprise cut next year. But hopefully he finds a way to be back for week 1 and healthy. I thought Carter showed some flashes this year of being like a really good pass rusher, but unfortunately we won't get to see it this year. Yeah,
it really is unfortunate. He was one of the guys that I really thought could have broke out this year. I thought he fit the scheme very nicely. A guy with a lot of upside. I thought with proper coaching, he really could take off, and it's really unfortunate. Another thing I want to say before, I want to make sure everybody realizes Miketoonice, if you don't know him, you probably do, but if one of my mods could post his link in the chat, I want you guys to make sure you're going over there. We're going to be over there next week. I think on Tuesday. I think that's going to be the day we're going to be doing this. To recap week 6, it'll be a win. We're calling it. And then we'll preview week 7, which we're going to get into in a second. We're going to get more into the week 6 matchup against the Washington football team. But please go over there, check out Mike. And Mike, thanks again for coming on. Riley, man, he says, if we sell Peppers, ultimately the OBJ trade was useless. That's, I guess, somewhat fair to say. I mean, Dexter Lawrence is definitely a nice piece. Dexter Lawrence is definitely a nice player for the Giants. But, outside of that, O'Shane Ximines doesn't look like he's much. I know he's hurt right now. And we'll see how that plays out. Peppers, and who was the other? We got 3 picks. What was the other pick?
We got Lawrence, Ximines, right? Or that was it?
I thought we got another. Was that all? What was it? I thought we got one more pick. Maybe I'm wrong.
I thought that was it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know you're probably right. You're probably right. I'm probably wrong.
Right.
Yeah, but no. I mean, if Peppers doesn't work out, listen. I think in the end, Mike, it's going to be, and maybe your opinion differs than mine. I think in the end, it's going to be a trade that there's really no great winner for either side. I don't think Beckham's going to be the main reason why they win a championship or they become a great team. And I don't think the Giants would have been that much better had they had Beckham. Yeah, it would have been a lot better for Daniel Jones, but it's not like this team would have won 7, 8, 9, 10 games, in my opinion, if we still had Odell Beckham on the roster. So in the end, is it a monumentally bad trade for the Giants? No. Did it work out? No. I think you got, if you just look at the draft capital that the New York Giants got and you don't look at the players that they selected with the picks, because that's the only way you could evaluate that trade when they make it. You're not trading them for players, you're trading them for picks. And if you look at the picks that they received for Odell Beckham, they got about what they should have, in my opinion. I with all things considered, I think that they got about, when you trade a superstar, you're never going to get equal value. That's the way it works. So I think they got about fair compensation in terms of draft picks. The players didn't necessarily work out.
Yeah, you're right. And it's a shame because I remember there was that rumor going around that the Giants almost acquired DeForest and Buckner from the 49ers for him. I would have been thrilled about that one. But for the trade that actually happened, yeah, I don't know if I regret it. Of course, I'm like the biggest Odell fanboy there is, and I didn't want to trade him. But at the same time, I mean, Peppers, when we traded for him, I listed him as a poor man's Jabril Peppers. And like to this point, it's kind of held up. I know he hasn't been like completely healthy this year. I would say Collins is still a little bit better of a player. And I was always a fan of franchise tagging Collins. I wouldn't have given him that insane contract that Washington gave him, but like, you know, maybe $20 million less, I would have said, okay. But, you know, looking for like I don't know about taking Lawrence though. That was the thing. Like I think Lawrence, as I've said, even when we drafted him, is going to be a good player for this team for a decade if he stays. But Dexter Lawrence doesn't impact the game the way a superstar, game-changing wide receiver does. It's just, you know, the fact of the matter. So while Lawrence is a good, solid player, he's not going to be what Odell Beckham is. And, you know, you're right. This could be a trade where we look back on it and there's no winner. This won't be like that Nets Celtics trade from 2014 where it's very one-sided. We'll look at this one and say, like, look, I mean, the Browns got themselves a guy who can stretch the field and take attention away from guys like Jarvis Landry and David Njoku, Austin Hooper, which is great. But right now, look at the Browns. I mean, I do keep a close eye on them because I love Baker and Odell. They're playing pretty well. You know, I like Kevin Stefanski a lot. And if the Browns actually end up winning something or making the playoffs, then, you know, maybe they are looked at as the winners. But I guess we'll have to see what Dexter Lawrence really turns into. And for O'Shane Ximines, it's a shame because I love the kid. I was so thrilled when we drafted him. Last year showed a lot of flashes, but then came into this year. I don't know if the coaching staff here doesn't like him or what, but he has not played too well this year. It's been a bit of a disappointment for sure. Now he's injured. I hope he comes back healthy and just plays really well. But right now, I would say I'm definitely, you know, I would say one of the most disappointed guys right now, I would say is probably O'Shane Ximines at the moment. Yeah,
I mean, my take on the trade right now, if these guys don't work out better, is I think we got fair compensation, but they didn't deliver on the draft picks. So if you want to look at it that way, they didn't hit on the draft picks that they got. That's the way I'd look at it right now. I do like Dexter Lawrence. A guy like Montez Sweat may have been a guy that maybe could make more of a dramatic impact on a football game. And maybe if you take him, you would have been a much more happier with the trade, being that you want an edge rush right now if you're a New York Giants fan. So maybe the trade itself in terms of draft capital was pretty fair. But maybe you don't like that the players that they were able to pick up with the draft picks. I think that may be the way that you could look at it. But if we're being fair and if you're being completely unbiased, and the Browns have played very well, they're 4-1. They've done that mainly with the ground game. And I think the acquisition of Jack Conklin has been phenomenal. Odell Beckham outside of one game has been pedestrian, and he did it against the Cowboys, the same team that Darius Slayton just did it against. So let's be fair. If you're an Odell Beckham fanboy, like you said, Odell Beckham has not had a dramatic impact on that team outside of a couple of games. So I think we got to be fair. Yes, the Browns look very good, though, right now. And Independent Man, thank you very much. I appreciate it. He says, could Nick Caserio replace Gettleman as the next GM? And do you think it's a good partnership with Judge, seeing Caserio with the Pats now? Good job, guys. Independent Man, I really appreciate that. Thank you for being a great supporter of the channel. As far as Caserio goes, from what I heard, the Patriots, didn't they block him from potentially going to another team? I think I heard that somewhere.
The Texans, I think.
The Texans. I think it was the Texans. So, I mean, I know that there were rumors that came out that Caserio wanted to potentially come to the Giants, I think in 2017. So, I mean, he's got a tie to Judge, and I would love to see it, but I don't know if the Patriots are going to let him get away.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think, you know, if the Giants can get an interview with him, they'll do it. It makes a lot of sense because of Judge being there and the continuity with those guys. But, will the Patriots let him get away is the real question. So that's something you got to wait and see. But I guarantee if the Patriots let him, you know, go for interviews, he will be interviewed by this team. I can't guarantee he'll be hired by this team, but he'll at minimum get an interview here. I think it makes too much sense because, as I said, I think John Mara is going to hire, you know, assuming Gettleman is fired or retired, John Mara will hire the most qualified candidate that's willing to work with Joe Judge. He might not hire the most qualified candidate, but the one that's going to work with Joe Judge, which is probably not the best way to go about it. But still, that's the situation we're in right now. So whoever wants to work with Joe Judge and is the most qualified, I think we'll get the job. So if Caserio's that guy, I could see it happening. I think those guys working together in the past definitely will give him an upper hand when it comes to like negotiation time and things like that, or for the interview. But I guess we'll see what happens. But Caserio, yeah, it's an exciting opportunity. If he wants to be his own GM, I would say this is a great spot for him. But I guess we'll see what happens. I'm going to get to the next super chat. I just want to pull up Roldy because Roldy and me, we go back and forth every while.
He says, I just give you credit, Chris. And then you go and say crap about OBJ just to make you feel better about the trade. Shaking my damn head. I'm not saying it's not even crap about OBJ. I'm not trying. OBJ's played okay. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns last year for the Browns. I'm just being honest. It's not like he's played great since he left the Giants. He had one great game against the Dallas Cowboys, a team that Darius Slayton had 200 yards. We just said it. Had he hit on the big play, and so let's be fair. I know you knew it, Mike. You knew the second Odell Beckham had a huge game against a horrible defense. You knew that all the people that said Odell, because he sucked all last year. The second he had one great game, they don't take into account that they played the Cowboys. Odell Beckham. And I'm not going to tell you, listen, at the end of the day, if Cleveland wins a Super Bowl, we got killed in the trade if Odell Beckham has a lot to do with it. But right now, I don't know. It is what it is. I don't think Odell Beckham being on this team, we would have won that many more games. We didn't win many games when he was here. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have a bad team around us. And having Odell Beckham wouldn't have fixed the fact that we have a quarterback who struggles against reading defenses and the fact that we have an offensive line that can't block. So maybe we win an extra game or two, but we're not competing for the playoffs if we have Odell Beckham.
You're right. I think the main difference is because I think if Beckham was here, it wouldn't impact our record that much. But the thing it would impact is the development of our quarterback. I think he really could have used a guy like Beckham, who is not top 3 at his position anymore, but I would say still top 10. Look, he's not going to put up big numbers this year because this is kind of what happens in a Stefanski offense. They don't really go to their outside receivers too much. They love to run the ball, as you mentioned before. Even Beckham mentioned, like, look, my numbers aren't going to be that good this year. He has to focus on being efficient. But when you watch him play, still a very good receiver in this league. So, of course, he would have helped Daniel Jones, and that's the one thing. I don't think if Beckham's here, this is a playoff team, as you mentioned, but to help the development of a young quarterback, I think having Beckham here and even Slayton, I mean, those guys playing alongside each other would have been essential for Daniel Jones.
I agree with that. I completely agree. And I completely understand after watching this team this year why people are upset that we don't have Beckham, because having a number 1 wide receiver would absolutely help the development of Daniel Jones. So I get that, and I'm trying to be as fair as I can. I understand both sides of it. And having Odell Beckham definitely would have helped the development of Daniel Jones. Another thing that would have helped the development of Daniel Jones was keeping Pat Shurmur here, but we didn't do it. So it is what it is. Raheem, man, thank you very much, man. Thoughts on Tay Crowder? He didn't make much of an impact in this game. I didn't watch your full film breakdown. I don't know if you went into full detail about Tay Crowder in your film breakdown. He played pretty well the first week. He looked like he made a few impact plays, but it didn't seem like he made much. I want to continue to see him out there because we need to evaluate our young talent. Didn't seem like he made much of an impact this week.
Yeah, you're right. He had a few run stops in there. I think made one nice – it wasn't even a play, but made like a nice aggressive play in zone coverage where he kind of took away what would have been a passing option because he kind of stepped in the area where the receiver was, kind of took away a passing play. Nothing that really showed up in the stat sheet too much. I'm going to look real quick. I think it was 3 tackles, 2 assists. It wasn't anything great. But, yeah, I mean, he's better than what they had. He's better than Devontae Downs. I will say that for sure. It seems like he's doing a good job of communicating with guys and knowing where they're supposed to be. So I'm excited for him. He's better than what they have. So you might as well just keep trotting him out there, see what you got. Don't play Devontae Downs is all I have to say. But I think he was pretty solid. Good in the run game. Didn't do much in the passing game from what I saw, aside from taking away that one pass attempt. But that's pretty much it. It wasn't too impressive, but it wasn't bad either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he didn't jump off the page for me. And I see some people in the chat say, "What's with all the OBJ hate?" Listen, they're probably talking to people in the chat. Listen, man, I think OBJ is a very talented wide receiver. I understand why the Giants traded him. He's a great talent. He was great while he was here, when he was on the field, when he wasn't going on boat trips and doing some things he probably shouldn't be doing. But Odell Beckham was a great talent. He's the most talented wide receiver the New York Giants have ever had. And it's time to stop talking about him. He's not a New York Giant anymore. Zach Phillips, man, thank you very much. He says, maybe we need to get rid of Sterling. He's the only person that was in the 2016 season left from the wide receiving corps. I think him and Dalvin Tomlinson are the only 2 players that are – no, there's a couple of others. Wayne Gallman's from the Jerry Reese regime. Maybe there's one – I think maybe there's 4 players, 3 or 4 players. There's not many that are still left from the Jerry Reese regime.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that might be it.
Evan Engram. Did I say Evan Engram?
Yeah, that's one. Engram, Shepard, Gallman, Tomlinson, right? That's it, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, let's look at those guys right now, Mike. I think Tomlinson's probably 50-50 that he's back. I think Evan Engram, at most, he's probably here for another year. Gallman will probably be here. They'll probably keep Gallman the way he's played so far. And maybe they keep 2 or 3 of those guys. Shepard, I don't think we're going to be able to trade him. I know we've talked about the possibility of I don't see anybody taking that contract with his injury history, so I think he's going to be here for another year.
Yeah. For Jerry Reese, guys, I think Gallman depends on the next GM if he really wants him, if they draft a guy in the next draft. Shepard, yeah, as you said, no one's really going to want that contract, kind of like the Lev Bell situation where they tried to trade him for a 7th-round pick and no one wanted the guy based on the contract. Yeah, he gets hurt too much. I think he's a good player when he's in there. He'll never be a star or a wide receiver 1 as we know by now, but I don't really think it's possible to get anything great draft value-wise, at least a top 5-round pick for him. I don't see that happening. Maybe you get a 6th, 7th-round pick for him. That's about it. Tomlinson, as I said, I hope to extend him. Maybe $11, $12 million a year would be great in my opinion. Who was the last guy? Engram. So Engram, I really think there's a chance, and it was in my bold prediction video before the year. I think there's a chance he gets traded if they get the right pick for him. I think if they get something from one, as I always say, you just need one team to give you a good offer. Doesn't matter who it is. If you get a top pick from I always say like the top 100 would be a good estimate. You get something in there, I think it's kind of worth it. I think Engram, as I've said, for some reason, just doesn't seem like it's ever going to work here. I don't know if it's the scheme, his health, whatever it is. It just never is consistent week to week, and it's disappointing based on what we saw in 2017. I know he was the only target in town because Brandon Marshall, Odell, Shepard were all hurt that year. But what we saw from Engram in his rookie year, we were like, oh, man, we have a tight end here that's going to be a problem for the next 7-8 years. And now we sit here 3-4 years later, and he's getting hurt. He's not playing consistently. What do you have? 1 catch last week? I know he had the rushing touchdown in there, but they are not using him the right way. And as I said in the beginning of this show, if you're not going to use him the right way, try and get a draft pick for him. If you get a good one, you take it.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those. And there's going to be teams that are desperate for weapons. It happens every year. You saw Mohamed Sanu, the Patriots gave up a 2nd-round pick. Yeah. Maybe the Patriots will be desperate again. They need weapons. They could use a tight end, a playmaker. There could be a team that does offer more than we think. It's supply and demand at the end of the day.
What about the Green Bay Packers? That's fine. I know Tanyan's been good, but the Packers can really use a tight end.
Green Bay Packers are another really good possibility. That's a good one that you bring up. Andrew Marchese, man, thank you very much. He says Crowder, Edelman, Renfro, Beasley, none of them drafted higher than the 4th round. Finding a good slot guy needs to be devalued, so selling Shep is fine. It's a good point. Jamison Crowder, I don't. Oh, you said it. Never mind. That was the first thing you said. Sorry about that, Andrew. But no, you're absolutely right, man. You could find great slot wide receivers outside of the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. I agree. Shepard, I love Shepard. Shepard was not a great pick. I mean, in retrospect, looking back at it, he was a guy that we were all really excited about. Hasn't worked out, mainly due to injuries. But I agree with you. I always say it, man. I always think that you could find value at the wide receiver position in the draft. I'd like to get your take on that in terms of everybody says we need a number 1 threat, and I agree. But in this year's draft, I would sooner wait until the 2nd round to try to find a wide receiver because I think that in terms of value, offensive tackle, edge rusher, if I'm picking early in the first, now if I'm mid-1st round, that's different. But if I'm top 4 or 5, I'm going edge rusher, I'm going offensive tackle, I'm going quarterback. That's what I'm looking at. If I'm picking the top 4 or 5, I'd be very hard pressed if I was a GM to take a wide receiver in the first 5 picks.
Yeah, no, you're speaking my language with the positional value stuff. I think finding a slot receiver and overpaying for one, even taking one in the 1st round is not something you need to do because, as you mentioned, you can find some later. And this has been a great receiver class. I feel like everyone outside of Denzel Mims, of course, the Jets, has been great so far in this class. I mean, look at Chase Claypool, look at Jefferson. Even Jalen Reagor showed up for the Eagles a bit. Even this guy, what's his name? Darnell Mooney for the Bears has played well so far.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, there was that kid for the Bills last night, something Davis, I think it is, who's been
Taylor
playing
Gabriel,
well.
I think, is a rookie for the Bills, too, if I'm not mistaken. He was making some plays.
Mm-hmm. No, did you say Taylor Gabriel?
Maybe I'm wrong.
Not him. It's someone. Taylor, is it Davis? Something Davis. I forget his name, honestly. But yeah, a lot of good rookies in this class. And I don't know about this year's rookie class. I know Chase from LSU, I think, is the guy everyone talks about. I watched a couple games of him. I wasn't wowed, but at the same time, he's pretty good. I wouldn't take him in the top 5, but we'll see about that. I think you're right, though. When it comes to a top 5 pick, you really need a guy. To take a receiver top 5, in my opinion, you have to be Julio Jones level type receiver, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm looking to take like an offensive tackle, quarterback, pass rusher, those type of premium positions that are hard to find, even outside cornerback. But yeah, I mean, I think slot receiver is easier to find. It's harder to find those like alpha wide receiver one on that plays on the outside mainly. Those are the hard ones to find. So like those are the guys I would take in the first round. But slot receiver specifically, I wouldn't really use a first round pick on.
Yeah, I'm kind of completely with you on that. To me, I think we completely. Whoops, I pulled up the wrong one. There we go. D Grant asked the question. I think it's all about positional value. I do not want to reach on a wide receiver. That's just me, especially in a draft class so deep at the wide receiver position. D Grant says, "Entertainer, do you believe?" And you knew we were going to get this question. He says, "Entertainer, do you believe or feel the Giants should look for another quarterback or keep building the offensive line?" Okay, and we got asked this last week too. Maybe your opinion's changed on it. My opinion is, unless you feel that quarterback is a once in a 5-year type prospect, I want to continue to build this football team. If Trevor Lawrence is one of those guys that you can't pass up on because he's the next Andrew Luck, and you honestly feel that way as an organization, you have to take him. But if they feel like the quarterback prospects that you could select, we could find another guy like this in next year's draft. No, I'm going to fix the rest of this roster. We have way too many holes on this roster, in my opinion, unless the guy is a generational talent at the quarterback position to use a pick at that position 2 out of the last 3 years. We have way too many holes. You have to fill the holes on this roster. If he's generational and he's going to be a top 5 player and you honestly feel that way, you got to take him. But outside of that, I'm fixing the other holes on this roster.
Yeah, you're right. And as you said earlier, I really think the first pick belongs to the Jets until further notice. At least the Giants are competitive. The Jets aren't even competitive. Like Jets fans always say, I heard Evan Roberts on the fan say, there's a point in the game where Adam Gase kind of throws up his hands and gives up at some point in the game. And the Jets are that bad right now. The Giants, I still think they'll be top 5 in this draft, unfortunately. If I was making a decision here, the only way I could take a quarterback is if I fall in love with Trey Lance. Like that's a guy who I think has all the tools right there. I still have to watch more of him, admittedly, but I'm not really a big Fields guy right now from Ohio State. I really think building the offensive line is probably more important now. My opinion on Daniel Jones, it's kind of like a less confident opinion each week as we see here. As I said before, he didn't play horrible in this game, but like I'm still not too optimistic he's the guy. I really don't think Jones is ever going to reach an elite level in this league. I'm going to be straight up honest. But as I've always said, and when we drafted him too, I said the same thing. He reminds me of Alex Smith from KC. If you build the right team around him, the Giants can build a winner here. The problem is they don't have a good roster around Daniel Jones. So how can you expect a kid to win? Like, they're not helping him in any way. This play calling is not that good. They don't have a receiver that can get separation. They don't even use their best weapon in Evan Engram. Like, you can't pin it all on Daniel Jones. But at the same time, Daniel Jones is not playing at a high level. He's playing at a mediocre to even below average level right now. I have to admit that. And based on what I saw from him as a prospect at Duke and even the way he's played so far, I don't ever see him being a top 10 quarterback, but he doesn't have to be. Just build the right team around him. But the problem is they don't have the right team around him. So it's really hard to evaluate him. But as I've said, we're probably not getting Lawrence as much as I'd love to have him. Probably not going to happen. The only way I see it happening is if I fall in love with Trey Lance. That's the only way to want a quarterback in this next draft. If not, you stick with Jones and you pretty much hope that he turns out to be a great quarterback.
Yeah, we're lockstep on that. If I felt like Trey Lance was that as good as you just said, it's hard to pass up on him. I agree with that because and I'm being fair, I try to back Daniel Jones. I'm a Giants fan. I want him to be successful because if we draft a quarterback, that means we failed. That means we're starting again from scratch and we're starting to rebuild all over because that's what you do when you draft a rookie quarterback. So if we do that, we're starting all over again. But if I felt Trey Lance was that good, I don't think Daniel Jones will ever reach that level. When you have an opportunity to take that big of a jump at the most important position, yeah, it's hard not to do it. I think Daniel Jones could be a good quarterback. I think he could be Ryan Tannehill. And that's not a knock. Ryan Tannehill's a good quarterback. Ryan Tannehill's team right now is 4-0 because they got the right pieces around him. They went to the AFC Championship game last year. I think he's a guy that can make plays. He could make the plays that need to be made when you have a proper support system around him. Right now, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have close to that. So, yes, I'd have to feel that the quarterback prospect was unbelievable, though, for me to restart all over again. And that's what you'd be doing. Pastor Ray, I think you're kidding here. I hope you're kidding here. He says, and Pastor Ray, man, thank you so much for being such a great supporter. He says, I don't know, guys. I think if we get the number 2 pick, we should draft a running back.
I'm not taking this one serious. I think he just did it to piss me off, or maybe even you. I don't know. It made me laugh, though. I appreciate that. That was good.
Pandemonium, thank you very much. He says, can we get I think you mean Alex Bachman a sighting. They cut Bachman, didn't they?
I think so. I can look him up real quick. I'm pretty sure he got released at some point. But
I think they released him when they brought the kid they just called up. What's his name again? The kid they just called up from Ohio State.
Oh, Mack, right?
Yeah, Mack. When they brought Mack back the first time, I think they cut Bachman. I'm pretty sure of that.
It's not showing up on the side here of like whether he's with the Giants still or not, so I can't really answer that right now. But I feel like I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
I'll try to figure this one out.
I'm almost positive. Jarvis Juice, what's going on, my man? He says in all capital letters, he's pissed, and he's not even a Giants fan. He says you gotta replace Jason Garrett. I'll get your take on Garrett, and then I'll give mine.
Back to Bachman. Latest thing is for transactions. September 15th, it said removed wide receiver Alex Bachman from the practice squad. So other than that, he has not had any other transactions. So based on that, I think he's gone. For Jason Garrett, if you said this last week, maybe I agree with you. I did admit that if things are this bad throughout the whole year, where the team's averaging around 11 points per game, and now it goes up. I know, I think they scored a defensive touchdown, so it kind of made their point total look better. But they played pretty well offensively. It could have been better against a team as bad as Dallas, and I'm still pissed they didn't find a way to get in the field goal range on that last drive, but it is what it is. I don't know about replacing him right now. Of course, there's good young offensive minds out there that you would love to throw into this situation. And I wasn't like thrilled about the Jason Garrett hire, but I try to look at it from an optimistic standpoint. We'll bring that power run game here. We have the best running back in the league, who I thought, is the best running back in the league. Unfortunately, he's not here anymore. But I figured if they really ran the ball well, used play action to Daniel Jones' advantage, that this thing could have worked. But so far, the wide receiver routes for Jason Garrett have not been that great. They're not going downfield as much as I'd like to. But to replace him right now, probably not going to happen. I don't know if he means like at the end of the year.
I would assume he means at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I really do, especially new GM coming in here, which I would think would happen. I don't really know if Jason Garrett's a Joe Judge guy. I mean, people have speculated it's like a John Mara type pickup. I really don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out at some point maybe. But if he's not a Joe Judge guy and he's not the new GM's guy, and John Mara kind of takes a step back here, then I think it's a very likely thing that it could be a one and done type year for Jason Garrett.
My take on Garrett is I think he's tied to Jones. I think if Jones stays another year, Garrett stays another year. I don't think there's any way, in my opinion, that you can ask Daniel Jones to learn 3 different schemes in 3 different years. I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think if they go out and draft a quarterback, Garrett could be gone. I'm going to continue to say about Garrett what I've said really through the first 5 weeks. And like you said, I think it was more encouraging this week. I think we got to give him time just like everybody else on this offense. And I got to give him a full season just like I'm giving Daniel Jones. I think we saw a little bit more innovation this week. And I think as the offensive line gets better, you'll start to see the full playbook. Right now, I don't think Garrett's comfortable enough to unleash the full playbook with the roster that the New York Giants currently have, as the offensive line is hopefully getting better week in and week out. But I'm going to say this. If they fire Garrett, Daniel Jones probably not the quarterback in 2021. I think when they hired Garrett, it was a commitment for at least 2 years with Daniel Jones as his play caller.
That's a good point. Someone said to me on Twitter today, which was also a good point, that Jones had his most success in like this West Coast offense type thing with Shermer, and now you kind of put him in like this power run scheme, and it like didn't really make sense. So as the guy mentioned to me on Twitter, they probably should have hired another West Coast type of offensive mind. It hasn't happened, and so far, it's not going well for Jones. He's having a tough time adjusting here. As we both think, things will probably get better here, but so far, his adjustment to this new scheme hasn't really been that good so far.
Yeah, and I was hoping to be better than this. I wasn't thinking 2 touchdowns through 5 weeks, but I thought he'd struggle early on. I thought it would be better than this, though. G-Man Rising, man, thank you very much. He says, well, here's the thing. To me, it will take 2 years for us to have the right team around DJ. By then, you were paying him $30 to $35 million after rookie, and that's a very fair thing to bring up. And something that I've talked about, I think we've talked about that before. I don't know if you have to pay him that if he's not playing well, but yes, you're absolutely right. I agree with that. In today's modern day NFL, if by year's end you're not starting to see the offense really start to click, which I still think we could, I really do. In 2018, the offense looked completely different the second half as it did the first half, and it was a new scheme with Pat Shermer. So it took a half season. That second half, the Giants' offense was actually really good. So if we see that, a carbon copy of 2018, the last 8 games, we're saying, oh, wow, this offense looks much improved. I go forward with Jones for another year. But if you don't see that, that's when I start to open up the possibility of moving on because, yes, in today's modern-day NFL, the benefit is to have a rookie quarterback on his rookie deal and get the most out of it. But the other thing I'll say to that, Mike, I would still give Jones, unless you can get that supreme quarterback prospect, I'd still give Jones another year because the way I look at it is if you draft a quarterback, you're putting him in the same situation you put Daniel Jones in, and you're wasting at least the first year of his rookie deal because you're still going to have a crappy team around him. You won't have that offensive line completely established. You won't have that wide receiver because you're not using that first-round pick to either trade down to get more assets or to bring in a piece to help out this offense. So the way I would look at it is I try to get the most I possibly could out of that next rookie deal if I felt like Daniel Jones wasn't the guy. I wouldn't want to put that new rookie in the same shitty situation.
Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to think basically the Giants have Jones for 5 years on his rookie contract. I'm only in year 2. So, if this scenario is exactly how this question is going, the Giants could have him for years 4 and 5 with a better team around him. Now, does he make it to year 4? I really don't know at this point because there's been questions since basically week 2 of his second season of whether he's going to be the guy here next year. I think a lot of that has to do with the prospect of Trevor Lawrence being in this draft. Like if it was an average quarterback draft, I don't think the talk of having a new quarterback is that much as it is now. But of course, with a guy like Lawrence, it is. So, I mean, look, it really does come down to building the right team around him. Does it happen as soon as next year? Maybe. I would say probably not because that's a lot to build on. But if they get their second and third round pick, assuming they don't re-sign Leonard Williams, if they get their second, third, fifth round picks right and sign a couple more free agents on the offensive side that could help and get like an actual wide receiver here, maybe even a wide receiver 2 in the draft, then, or even a wide receiver 3 because we have Slayton, but you know what I mean? Like get some actual help here, then it's going to make Jones's job a lot easier. Now, as I said, do I think Jones is going to be elite? No, but he's going to be better if you put better pieces around him. So that's really the main thing. Can they make it happen in 2 years? Maybe, but it really depends how the next GM is and how good he is right away.
That's the other thing. We don't know we don't know if he's going to be a Daniel Jones guy either, the new GM. Lax, man, thank you very much. Just taking Lawrence would be a waste. Too many holes on the roster. Even if they give the first pick, they have to trade and build the team first. I see both sides of it, Lax. Like I continue to say, if the Giants pass up on Lawrence, I can understand why people would say that's crazy because if Lawrence is as good as people say, which he very well may not be, people said the same thing about Sam Darnold. But if he is as good as people say, the Giants will look like complete fools. If he's going to be that Peyton Manning level quarterback or, top 3 or 4 level quarterback for the next 15 years, people always say you passed up on that. So I see both sides of it. It is the most important position on a roster. However, you could get a boatload if you did trade out of that 1 spot or even 2 spot. If somebody was in love with a guy like Fields or Trey Lance, you would get a boatload and you'd be able to fill this roster in a lot quicker to try to help out your quarterback, Daniel Jones, if he was the guy going forward. I see both sides of it. If I'm being completely honest, I'm hoping as a Giants fan, we're not put in that situation. I hope we have the 4th or 5th pick. Daniel Jones plays better over the course of the year, and we say to ourselves, all right, he's our guy at least for next year. We got confidence in him. Let's build this team around him. We know what he needs. Let's get the receiver. Let's get the offensive whatever it is, to help him out as much as we possibly can. That's what I'm hoping for. But I see both sides of it. He needs to play better over these last 11 games.
Yeah, you said it right. There are 2 sides of this thing. Now, me personally, I would not want to pass on Trevor Lawrence. I think that's something that can really come back to haunt you. But if you get the right trade, and we're talking, 3 first-round picks and another second, there would have to be a crazy amount, for a guy like Trevor Lawrence here. But to me, if the guy is as good as he says he is, and as I always say, admittedly, haven't watched every game of Trevor Lawrence. I plan to at some point during the draft process, but right now I haven't. But if he's as good as people say he is, you take him. If the Giants are that bad to the point where, because Lawrence is going to go first overall. I don't care which team has the first pick. He's going to go first overall. I don't really see a scenario where a team has the first pick and doesn't take him. Can you say the Atlanta Falcons? Well, maybe, but
I still think the Falcons are taking him. Their owner came out and he didn't back up Matt Ryan this week.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think whoever has that first pick is going to take him. So if the Giants are in that position, and he's as good as people say he is, you don't pass on a guy like that. He can, I know the argument is I've heard as many times is, what you take Lawrence and you still have a crappy team around him. What's the point? Well, the point is that a franchise quarterback and a guy that plays at an elite level at the most important position can completely change your franchise. Is Joe Burrow in the best situation? No, he's not, but he's playing really well with what he has. I know they put up 3 points this week, but that's the Ravens. Aside from that, they've had some pretty good, nice offensive showings this year. And even a guy like Justin Herbert, I know he's not a first overall pick, but like he's had, 4 of his 5 offensive linemen hurt this week, goes into New Orleans. Keenan Allen misses more than half the game. They go in there and put up a great fight because this young quarterback's playing out of his mind, so if you get a great young quarterback and Lawrence is as good as people say he is, he doesn't have to have the best team right around them right away. They might not make the playoffs right away, but what I do know is that they have the elite quarterback. We don't know if we have the elite quarterback right now. That's the thing. Like that, the main thing in football is you want to have the elite quarterback. We don't know that right now. But if you take Trevor Lawrence and he's playing at this crazy elite level, you have the elite quarterback and you have to fill in the other spots. Like I'd rather be in a position where I have the young quarterback and have to fill in another tackle spot, another edge rusher spot, another wide receiver 1 spot. Like those would be easier to fill, in my opinion, than trying to find this quarterback that comes around once every 10 years, as people are saying about this guy.
That's why I can see both sides of it. In the end, I'm going to continue to say it. I don't think we're going to get the option. I don't. Mm-hmm. I think the Jets are getting the first pick. I really do. I can't. I looked at the Jets' schedule today. Their easiest game is against Miami. Miami's good. So they're playing well. I think the Jets win 1 game this year. I think they're getting the first pick.
They're 8-point favorites, I think, too, Miami. So they're not projected to win that game at all, the Jets.
Yeah. And King26 Ray says, "What's up, guys? I'm sure you already talked about this, but what position is most needed? Also, is Jones our guy?" As you just heard from our conversation, we don't know if Jones is our guy yet. We need to. I'm hoping that he is. I'm hoping that he improves and gets better. In terms of our biggest need, I mean, Mike, I think it's edge rusher, but you could argue wide receiver, you could argue coverage linebacker, you could argue cornerback too. I think it's edge rusher.
No, I agree, 100%. I was going to say the same thing. You put an elite pass rusher on this team, like if the Giants had a 15 sack a year guy, which they don't come around too often, but just say they did, like a 10 to 15 sack a year guy that's constantly in the quarterback's face, that can change your entire defense. It makes your secondary look better and everything. So having a guy like that would be such a huge improvement for the Giants. And for that second question, I mean, look, if I had to answer today, I'm leaning towards probably not being my objective self from what I've seen so far. But at the same time, we don't know. Nobody knows. I said this a few weeks ago. Nobody knows if he's the guy or not. You can say what you want. We don't know yet. I want him to be the guy because, as we've said, it's very beneficial for the Giants, especially to be in a position where they can trade back in the draft and not have to waste another pick on a quarterback 2 times in 3 years. It would be very beneficial for this franchise if Jones proves to be the guy. If he still plays like crap the remaining, 11 games or so, that's an issue, and you might have to address the quarterback position. I hope they don't, but I'm just being realistic. So right now I'm leaning towards no because I haven't liked what I've seen so far. But, as Chris said, and as I said as well, we hope he's the guy.
Yeah, I think that's the best case scenario. And once again, we're going to do this for around another 10 minutes, guys. I'm going to let Mike go. If you guys haven't done so, please go over to Miketoonice's channel. Please subscribe. We're going to be over there next week. Great guy, great content creator. And a lot of times we disagree, so you get 2 different perspectives. So, well, no, we agree on a lot too. But go over there and check him out, man. I appreciate it. G-Man Rising says, "Get ready for Tish and Mara's showdown this offseason."
It's a good one. Yeah.
That is a really good idea for a video. I might have to steal that from G-Man Rising. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, man. Tish has been very outspoken about. Basically, Mara kind of has the mentality of, he's always had the mantra of let's be patient, let's blah, 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 blah. Tish has kind of been outspoken. We need to make stuff happen. That's a really good one. I personally think Tish is going to win out this offseason. I think they're going to make dramatic changes. And I think we're going to get a new GM. I could be wrong. Maybe they stick with Gettleman. I don't think they do. So, I just hope they don't change the coach. I'd be really pissed off. I don't curse in my videos. You'd see me curse if they fired Joe Judge after 1 year. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm accepting that. I think we're going to have a completely new GM next year, and it's justified. But I do not want to see a new head coach. That's what But yeah, I agree. There's going to be there might be a showdown between Tish and Mara.
Yeah, no, this question or statement, whatever you want to call it, is great. It makes so much sense. I mean, there's been a bit of a showdown the past 2 years, and then we've seen tweets about, some quotes from Tish and how he's been pretty outspoken in some cases about how he's very not pleased with what's going on here. And John Mara, as you said, is the type of guy that wants to work in-house and say, oh, we'll get this thing going eventually, but Tish wants to make these major changes. The Giants are a franchise, in my opinion. I said this back in 2017 when Gettleman was hired. They need to make major changes. The Giant way is dead. Like, I used to be proud to be a Giants fan. And back when I was in middle school, early high school, rooting for this team, I thought never in a million years we would be in this position where it's 4 straight years of being worse than the Jets, basically, and being like one of the worst teams in football. But here we are. And, what you're doing has not been working. Let's give Tisch a shot here. What's the worst that could happen? You can't get worse from here. If Tisch is right and you hire an outside guy who comes in and changes his organization, that's great. We're all happy at the end of the day. So I want that to happen. I'm sure Mara in the back of his mind probably wants to promote Kevin Abrams and go about his business, as I said. But I feel like that'd be a terrible idea. Once again, it would just put us back to square one. Really want to see Tisch get involved here. As you said, I think he will win out this time. But do I trust John Mara? No. But I think, as we said, they have split ownership here. So I really hope and believe that this time it's Tisch's say.
I mean, Mara came out this offseason and basically said, paraphrasing a bit, if they're not an improved football team this year, there's going to be changes. So, I mean, what change would that be? The only guy that makes logical sense is the general manager. They just hired a new head coach that he was largely responsible for hiring. So I would think Gettleman would be the guy, and I think Gettleman was on the chopping block before. That's
the problem, though. They are going to make changes, but how big are these changes? You know what I mean? Is it in-house change? Is it going to a different organization and bringing another voice in type of change? Change can be anything. He didn't say what degree of change, so that's the part where I'm concerned, honestly.
A great point. Great point. Independent. I don't see it on here, otherwise I would have popped it up. But he says, "You all hear any progress report? Did you all hear about the progress report on Xavier McKinney?" Well, McKinney can't come back till week 9, I think, right? Because he's on the IR.
November, right, or something. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about McKinney in the last since the injury. I haven't heard much about him.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with that November timeframe they gave us in the beginning. I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm on Twitter all the time, so I haven't seen any type of update on him. But if we do get one, I'm sure everyone will see it. But the fact that we haven't heard anything bad is a positive. I would assume that his rehab and everything's going well so far. And as I said, if he's 100% and doesn't risk further injury, I really hope we get to see him next month.
Yeah, and I think we will. They might wait till after the bye. That's what I've said all along, because then you get an extra week to prepare against the Bengals. And I think that might be the time where you bring Parrott in, too, if he's not in before then, because you get that extra week to prepare for that contest. But maybe they bring in Parrott, a little bit sooner than that. Roll, do you want to get that? Chris, you say you hope we pick 4th. Let's say we do that. Well, listen, at the end of the day, I just hope we win football games. So, but I'm rooting for Daniel Jones to be the guy. That's what I'm rooting for. He says, "What if Jones really doesn't show no signs of improvement? Now that we're stuck at QB hell, I don't think you understand." No, I completely understand it, Roldy. If we're picking what I did say, as I said, there was a 2-part sentence that I said. I said, I hope we're picking 4th and Daniel Jones shows signs of growth in the second half. If Daniel Jones does not show signs of growth, this offense does not improve, and he plays worse than he did his rookie year, I'm not hoping for that. At that point, I would be open to exploring the quarterback market. I said if we're picking 4th and Daniel Jones improves like we did in 2018 over the second half of the season, and the offense looks much better than it did over the first half, which I still expect to happen. Call me an optimist, but I think that is what will happen over the second half of the year, and we're going to have to wait and see.
This is actually a fantastic question. Got my mind going, honestly. I actually just looked up some of the free agent quarterbacks next year. If Jones proves to really be bad this year, like really bad, I don't think they can even go to 4th. They're probably 2nd or 3rd at that point. But before
you answer, I already looked. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to say Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, I'm still trying to look here, but
well, the reason I bring up Jacoby Brissett is because Jerry Shaplinski, who's the quarterback coach, was the quarterback coach for Jacoby Brissett, and he's got ties to the Patriots. I think Jacoby Brissett, if they elect to go that route, if you want to bring in a veteran via free agency, if you don't bring in a guy for the draft that could at least put some pressure on Daniel Jones, if Jones isn't improving, I think Brissett could make a lot of sense for a stopgap quarterback.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about the connections. I forgot Brissett was a Patriot. So great job by you to remember that. But Brissett's the anti-Daniel Jones. He's very conservative and Jones has been more conservative this year, but doesn't turn over the ball. The Giants would benefit from that greatly. And as Roldy says here, if they're in the 4th pick here, and we're assuming the guys that we want or would want in Lawrence and Trey Lance and hell, maybe even Fields are gone in the first 3 picks, you might be looking at a spot where you keep Daniel Jones. Of course, you're not going to flat out cut him, but you bring in another quarterback to really give him some competition. I mean, kind of like what with the Bears did with Trubisky this year. I know Trubisky's in year 5 and Jones would be in year 3, but kind of the same scenario where they trot out Jones to start the year, But if they don't see improvements, you bring in a guy like Nick Foles, and then you go from there. So as you said, Brissett would be a great option in my mind. Don't know how much he would cost. There's really not anybody else. I mean, Dak Prescott, of course, but if they might extend him. He's going to come off the bad injury. And imagine if the Giants got Prescott. Like, that's something no one's going to talk about. But just crazy if that would happen. I don't see it happening, but you never know. But Brissett. Rivers is probably one and done in Indy, so if the Colts extend him, that's not going to happen, but we'll see. Andy Dalton might be out there. That's a name. I probably wouldn't want him, but Jameis Winston. Another turnover guy.
No.
Hear me out. He does have more upside than Jones.
He does. He does. But here's what I'll say about Winston. If you're the Saints, wouldn't you just keep Winston if Breeze retires, which a lot of people seem to think he will?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And maybe he could be that guy that competes with a guy that you draft, and maybe he could have a big year for you. But if he becomes available on a cheap deal, why not? If you want a guy at that point, if Jones, here's what I'll say: if Jones does not play well and you don't draft a quarterback, I have no problem whatsoever bringing a guy that could at least be a competition for him in year 3. I have no problem with that personally. I'm going to stand by it. I think he's going to improve. I really do. And I want to just get through a couple more of these guys. G-Man says, as a huge college football fan too, I will say don't ignore Justin Fields. All right, here's the thing I'm going to say about it. He says, I get the OSU stereotype, but Ryan Day has transformed him. Check out quarterback schools. The whole school thing to me is bogus. I don't buy into that at all. Some people say he's a USC quarterback. He's Ohio State quarterback. Name the school. I don't believe in that. I mean, at the end of the day, people said the same thing about Oklahoma before such time that you saw Baker Mayfield play pretty well, and now you see Kyler Murray. I don't buy into that. If the guy could play, he could play. I don't buy into the whole school stereotype. If they feel Justin Fields could play, draft him. I don't buy into that at all.
No, I agree. Yeah, everyone's different, right? And everyone's different. I get that. But for me, when I watched Fields, and it was only a couple games, I'm once again not going to speak like I watched every start of him, but I wasn't really a big fan of the touch on his passes. I think there's things he could work on. Kind of reminded me of a Dak Prescott, as I said before, just a bit more athletic. So, which is a good quarterback. I can't go wrong with that. But if you have like a top 3 pick, I don't know if I would take him in that position. I think he needs to be like in a good system, a good scheme, and have a good team around him. Like, I don't think Fields is the type of guy who's going to put a team on his back. Like, I think a Lawrence could, or even a Lance if he works out. So we'll see. But I'm not going to say I'm out on Justin Fields. Just I'm saying out of the top 3 quarterbacks in this class right now, based on what I've seen, he's probably my least favorite. But I'll definitely look into him. We'll probably talk about it in the future. I'm sure we'll have a lot of videos leading up to the draft and things like that.
This is going to be a very interesting offseason, to say the least. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about on these shows and in our videos. G-Man says, to the Mara-ish thing, I think the problem with Mara is he's too obsessed with trying to recreate past Giants teams from 07 and 86 and 2020. I think that's exactly what Mike thinks.
Yes. I hate to agree. He's right.
I think that's basically what you say. And I get it. I get it. I understand where you're going.
What other excuse can you make for hiring a Dave Gettleman? Like, you're trying to relive the past.
It was a mom and pop hire. It was a guy that they were familiar with. It was a guy that they were. And I still stand by. I think the main reason why Dave Gettleman was hired to begin with was because, one, I agree that the attachment, the familiarity, that's definitely something that Mara liked. But 2,
and Eli Manning, right?
But yeah, and 2, I don't think a lot of GMs were knocking down the door to take the Giants' job because they were going to be forced a 37-year-old quarterback, and it was a team with a horrible cap situation. So you remember the cap situation coming in. It took 2 years to clean that up. So it wasn't like the Giants' job was the most. And I don't even know if there's a credit to Dave Gettleman. Regardless, this situation, if Gettleman is fired this year, is a much better situation for the new GM coming in than the previous GM. And I'm not trying to bash Jerry Reese, but it has everything to do with the fact that you're not inheriting an older quarterback and you're not inheriting cap hell. You have a pretty clean book. You have young talent on this team that was acquired over the last 2 or 3 years. It is a much better situation. I think it'll be a much more attractive situation for bringing in some of the top tier GMs.
Yeah, other than I'm trying to think, other than the Sterling Shepard contract and now the Nate Solder one that got pushed back a year, unfortunately, because he sat out, there's really not many bad ones. I mean, you can get out of the Zeitler one and save a lot of money. You can get out of Golden Tate. I know they're playing out of their minds right now, but even the offseason deals this year for Bradbury and Martinez were only 3-year deals. So they're looking great right now for the next GM when he comes in here. But, for this question, as I said, I hate to admit he's right, but he's right. I mean, they really tried to do that. And as you said, I think it has a lot to do with a lot of GMs not wanting to be stuck with Eli Manning. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And the cap hell they were in back then. But you definitely can see like part of the hire, I feel like, was to kind of get back to the old school Giant way, as I said before. It hasn't happened. They tried to get the offensive line right here. It still could get better. I'm not out on them completely with the offensive line. I mean, of course, I think Will Hernandez quietly has looked better in the recent weeks.
I wanted to talk about him. I think the last 2 weeks, Will Hernandez has looked good.
Yeah. I mean, pass blocking, some blips here and there, but I think run blocking has been great. I have to admit, he's been great run blocking, the last few weeks.
And that's encouraging because that's one of the guys that we need to be good. We need him. We need him to be a part of this line in the future. We spent the second round pick. We had high expectations for him. So that's a positive over the last 2 weeks. Yvonne says, stand up, 31-17. Giants win. DJ 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Book it.
I'll take
Mike, it. Do you think he's going to put up numbers like that, Mike?
No, but I'll take it. I'll sign up for it.
He needs to. He needs one of those games. He needs one of those games.
It's in him. We know it's in him.
Yeah, right? He's done it. He's done it. Belly says, could the Super Bowl be played outside of the USA? Yeah.
Does Hawaii count? I know it's in the USA, but does Hawaii count?
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually it could. I could see them trying to attract the far. I mean, they've obviously made it a primary focus to try to bring in, UK followers for years now. I could see them eventually doing that, Belly. Absolutely. And let me just see if I got. I'll get to a couple more of these, man. You got. By the way, again, I want to say thank you to all of you guys that watch our channels, that watch our streams. You guys are incredible. Thank you guys for continuing to support both of us. And if you don't support Mike, do it. I continue to say it. Do it. Go on over there and subscribe to him. We're going to be over there next week. He makes great content. He does great film breakdowns. He's a great guy. Check him out. Roldy, he says, Mike, can you tell Chris Fields and Lance aren't the quarterback types the Giants look into?
Yeah, he's got a point. I mean, based on the history, right? We've seen it, and it all goes back to, I know he's been benched recently, but like Daniel Jones over Dwayne Haskins. I mean, not to make a race thing out of it, but the Giants have a type. I think we know that for sure. I mean, the Giants, I think, were one of the last teams to have an African-American quarterback, and I think one person even told me that that's the reason Eli Manning was benched, to have the African-American quarterback finally start for the Giants, which I thought was complete bogus, honestly. But yeah, I mean, look, based on the history of this team, you look at it, the Giants have a type of quarterback. Now, I think with a new GM, things could change here, and I don't think you should look at quarterback prospects based on skin color. That's the stupidest thing ever.
That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. I guess I can understand why some people. I hope to God that's not true, because that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If that is the case, and I hope that's not the case.
Look at some of the quarterbacks we've seen recently that come up, even Mahomes and Watson and Lamar Jackson. Like the game is changing here, and it's really moving in that direction. So like, if they think that Lance is the guy, Fields is the guy, and they don't pick him based on like a discrimination type thing, it would just drive me up a wall for this franchise.
No, of course. If you think I don't care if the guy's white, yellow, pink, purple, black. I don't care if he's the guy. You take him. Period. End of story. Now, here's what I'll say. Here's what I said to Rolly, because Rolly brought that up to me. Let's be fair, Mike. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I pray to God that's not the case, because I'd be embarrassed as a Giants fan if it was.
Yeah.
Eli Manning was the quarterback from 2014 to 2018. So they didn't have an opportunity to take a quarterback for that entire span. And I'll be the first to say in the 70s, in the 80s, there definitely was a racial stereotype against black quarterbacks. I'll be the first to say it. But they didn't really have much of an opportunity over the last 20 years to take a quarterback. And then in the other draft, Dwayne Haskins sucks. So can you really get on the Giants for not drafting Dwayne Haskins? So I hope that's not the case. I'll say that right now. I don't know though. I can't definitively say that. I'm not in the Giants front office. I can't say that.
We're not flies on the wall. We don't know what's being said here and all those things, unfortunately.
Yeah. And John Letourneau, thank you very much. Just stand up, Dana. Do you think the Giants will go decades before going back to a Super Bowl? Redskins and Cowboys over 2 decades since. I hope not. He's an Eagles fan, so that's why he's saying that. He's an Eagles fan. But I hope not. But here's what I'll say, Mike. Somebody asked me this, I think last night actually. Somebody asked me, do you think the Giants will win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years? That's impossible to answer. There's no way you could possibly answer that right now, because here's what I'll say. I think in the next 5 years, they definitely could be competing for a Super Bowl, but a Super Bowl requires, more so than any other sport, to win a championship in football, it requires so much luck. Whether it's avoiding injuries, it's a sport where there's more injuries than any other sport. Whether it's getting the bounces to go your way. You think about any Super Bowl champion over the last 20 years since we've been watching the sport, They got bounces. You think about the
D4.
Yeah, D4. Any Super Bowl champion, whether it's in the Super Bowl itself or whether it's along the way, you need bounces to go your way, and the better teams take advantage of the opportunities given to them. So it's possible, but I think we're going to be competing in the playoffs before you know it. And maybe I'm too optimistic. Maybe Mike doesn't feel that way. I don't know. But
if the Giants are stuck in their ways and continue to do business the way they've been doing it, then it's going to take a while. But yeah, it's hard to look 5 years down the line because, as I always say, it's such a year-by-year league. This is not a league that takes 5 years to rebuild. I think things can change a lot in a year or two in this NFL, so I don't know. It really depends who they hire. I think I can answer that question more clearly once the GM is hired. If they hire someone that I think is Gettleman 2.0, I think I can answer that question a lot more clearly. But if they really hire an Ed Dodds, Nick Caserio type guy, I think there would definitely be a chance of it happening, So it's an optimistic look at it, at least.
Bavit's one of my best subscribers, just made me laugh with this comment. He says, "Why does Mike look more like Chris than Chris does?" Wow. I don't know what to say to that, Mike.
That's an interesting one.
He's got me thinking with that one. I don't know what to say to that.
I can't answer it. I don't know.
And John says there are decent quarterbacks every year. Don't waste your pick on a quarterback. We need a freaking linebacker for the future. Cornerback too. This class has a lot of wide receiver talent as well after Chase. John, again, I'm gonna keep saying what I've been saying. If he's a transcendent quarterback, you take him. If he's a very good quarterback, I wait. I gotta feel like he's guy that could be a top 5 quarterback in the league. Raphael says, thoughts on the stiff arm? Oh God, did you see that play yesterday?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whoa! Oh my God, dude! What did you think of that play?
Well, as someone that doesn't like Norman too much, it was pretty fun to see that happen. But yeah, you think about the weight difference there, the strength difference. I mean, Henry makes people look like kids out there sometimes. He's crazy. But yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I don't like Norman, obviously, so to see that happen to him was just a pretty cool thing, in my opinion. I found it funny.
Oh my God, he threw him down like a rag doll. And then I think we got one more, and then I think we're gonna close it out. Rolly says, honestly, Chris, you've been sleeping under a rock. If you hope that's not the case, that's 3 fandom will do to you, Chris. LOL. You get lost in this. Hey, you know what, Rolly? I'm going to continue to say I hope that's not the case. And everybody's entitled to feel the way they want. I understand it either way. I hope not. And if that's the case, they should be fired. Period. I mean, you can't fire the owner, but if that's the case, that's not how you evaluate a football team. You bring in the best players, period, end of story. The whole Mahomes thing, I see people bring this up all the time. Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, we couldn't have drafted those guys unless we traded up. So yeah. I can't really get on them for that. I mean, yes, they could have traded up, I suppose, like somebody else did, but I would like to think it has nothing to do with skin color. Some people may feel that's the case. Regardless, I hope that the New York Giants either have their quarterback that could get us back to the promised land like Eli Manning did, on the team currently, and if he's not the guy, I hope they find the guy, and I don't care what color it is. I want the New York Giants to get back to winning football, period, end of story. And Zeke, man, thank you very much. He says, until this organization, front office, owners gets their ish together, the quarterback won't matter. Yeah, I mean, I think it matters, but I agree we're not going to win football games until such time we build up the rest of this team. I said it before. Sam Darnold is a guy that maybe you didn't feel this way. Everybody's got their own opinions on quarterbacks, but professional scouts, guys that get paid a lot more than you or me, said that this guy was going to be an elite quarterback prospect. The Jets couldn't build a team around him. What has it gotten them? So, period, end of story, man. He was a much more highly thought of quarterback prospect than Daniel Jones. The Jets haven't won a thing. So, if you can't build a football team, I don't care how good the quarterback is. If you can't build some semblance of a roster, you're not going to have consistent success in the NFL. So I agree with that. I think Mike does too.
Yeah, pretty much. Having a great quarterback can change things for you, but when you put everything against him, it's not going to be good. And then there's been Mahomes was in a great situation with the Chiefs, got the city year. Even Lamar Jackson went into a good situation. Deshaun Watson's team wasn't the most talented, but it wasn't this terrible as the Giants either. So there's not too many examples of quarterbacks that just go into the worst situations in football and end up being great. We see a lot more of it go towards the Sam Darnold, Dwayne Haskins, the Josh Rosen route, where they aren't really given a fair chance with a good team around them or a competent team around them, and then their careers are over before it really started.
Yeah, and then Belly, last one, he says, if Jones doesn't improve, pick up the phone and call Andrew Luck. He's had a couple of good seasons, rest. You might want to play again. Okay, but Mike, what was the reason why Andrew Luck ended up having to retire early?
Tired of the rehab process.
And because they couldn't block, he got killed.
Yeah.
Is Andrew Luck going to be like, oh, yeah, let me go to the Giants? That's a good spot for me. Yeah, I got my ribs cracked 30 times when they couldn't block with the Colts. Let me go to a team that can't block. Ain't happening, my man. Ain't happening. And Malik, man, thank you very much. Hey, Chris. Hey, Mike. Malik, we're closing out, man. But hey to you. Thank you so much for tuning the stream. I don't want to keep Mike on too long. I know you got things to do, but I want to make sure that everybody goes over to Mike. We're going to be over there next week. We're going to be doing this. Show him some support. Show him some love. Subscribe. Check out the channel. And if my moderators could put Mike's channel in the chat below. Funk Up says Tom Coughlin for GM. Ain't happening. The guy. I love Tom Coughlin. Ain't happening.
Yeah.
That would be something that they would do. We're talking about old school, but
Oh yeah.
Mike, man, once again, man, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the channel. And thank you for providing such good Giants. Oh, real quick, we do it every week, and I always forget. Give me your final take on this week's game between the New York Giants and the Washington football team. WFT. Give me the quick breakdown, strengths, weaknesses for both teams, what the Giants have to do to win the football game.
I'm going to feel the same way I do probably when I pick the Atlanta Falcons to cover spreads, but I'm going to go with the Giants to win this game. I'm going to say the Giants win this one. I'll say 20-16. The things the Giants have to do here: don't turn the ball over. This will be a more slow-paced game. It's not going to be like Dallas where things were up-tempo. I think Washington goes pretty slow. Kyle Allen is starting. Force someone other than McLaurin to beat you. If it's who is it? Steven Sims, Dontrell Inman. I think Inman's on Washington. I hope I'm right about that one.
Yeah, he is.
Then so be it. If those guys beat you, Logan Thomas. Don't let McLaurin beat you. Watch out for Gibson on the running back. He's a good player, up-and-coming player. Their defense, look, Andrew Thomas is a very, they talk about X factors every week. Andrew Thomas is the X factor in this game. If he can hold Chase Young in check and gives Daniel Jones actual time to throw, that'll make things a lot easier. It'll be tough to get the running game going in this game, but still, I think it's possible. Washington's offensive line, I did praise it a couple shows ago after the first couple weeks, but it has been awful recently. I think the Rams had like 8 sacks. I think Donald had 4. Another guy in the Rams had 3. The pass rush has to be there. This offensive line for Washington is not good. So there's a lot of weaknesses here. Don't let McLaurin beat you. Make sure your offensive line is actually good this game, and I think the Giants have a chance to win this one. So I'll go 20-16 Giants.
I love the prediction. I love the score. And I Authentic, I see you just typed in the chat that you're going to be on Cup Bizzles tonight at 8. I'll definitely tune in. I'll definitely watch you. And if anybody has not supported Authentic yet, he's got a great podcast. Go check him out. Pandemonium says, Mike is the man. Big ups, bro. Mike is the man. Mike's a great dude, and he's got a great channel, so he is the man. As far as my prediction for the game, I think it's going to – I love your score. I think it's going to be right around that area. I don't think the Giants are going to put up 34 points again. I don't expect that. I think they'll come out with a conservative game plan, knowing that the Washington football team is not a team that could air it out like Dallas. I think they're going to try to establish the run to try to, protect their quarterback as much as possible, being that you got 2 great edge rushers over there. Got to be more unpredictable. Can't put them in third and long situations. A big key to this game for me is going to be first down. Got to get into second and manageable, whether it's throwing on first down and set up the run, whatever it is. You got to be 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6 or less so that they can't pin their ears back. That is huge. Got to play a clean game. We had a lot of penalties this week. But I think if the New York Giants don't turn the football over, they're a better football team. They're just a better football team, in my opinion. I know Washington looked pretty good week 1. They don't know what the hell they're doing on offense. They're on their 3rd quarterback. They've already given up on Haskins. Alex Smith didn't look the same. I watched the game last week. Didn't look near what he was before the injury with Washington. I think the Giants can get pressure on this Washington offense. Alex Smith does not scare me. Their weapons do not scare me. If they could stop the run, which I see no reason to think that they can't, even though they didn't look so good last week, this offensive line is not nearly as good as Dallas. Their running back is not nearly as good as Ezekiel Elliott. If they could stop the run and they could force Alex Smith to have to throw on 3rd and long and 2nd and long, I think the Giants will have a field day on defense. I think the Giants actually win a little bit more comfortably than you. I think they're going to go out there. They're going to play a good game this week. I got it like 24-17, maybe 24-14 even. I think it's going to be between a 7 and 10-point win. Call me an optimist. I really do think the New York Giants put forth a good effort this week. They find a way to win a football game. They get to 1-5, and it feels like a Christmas miracle. So I do think the Giants will finally get their first win. And Nick DeWick says, Tana, how you doing today? I'm doing well, man. You came in too late, my man, Nick DeWick. No, I know you got school and everything else, man, but I appreciate you for coming in. We're closing it out. Mike's got a tight schedule. I'm hungry. I'm going to be eating chicken parm. but once again, man, thank you so much to everybody. You guys are the best. You guys are the best supporters on YouTube. Mike, close it out. Do what you do.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys joining us. I don't know how many people are watching, but I'm assuming
We had
some
like
people are.
440 at one point.
That's awesome. Yeah, we appreciate you guys very much. Awesome that we get to chat with you once a week. I hope you guys enjoyed. We went for an hour 50 here, so I hope we got a good amount of information out here. And, we'll talk to you guys next week, hopefully after a win. Chris is a little more confident than I am. But, look, I will definitely take a relaxing Giants win where my heart doesn't have to pound and worry about it. I will take that, sign up for it. Hopefully we're more optimistic next week. And as someone said before, can we get a Daniel Jones 300-yard, 3-touchdown game? That would be great as well.
That would be amazing. I want back-to-back 3-touchdown games. Then people start to ease off of them a little bit. Beat the Eagles. Yeah. If you beat the Eagles, it'll feel like we won the Super Bowl. We haven't beaten them. I think, what has it been, about 200 years, Mike?
Yeah, like realistically, 2016, Carson Wentz's rookie year home game.
Yeah.
Long time.
Let's beat the Eagles. Let's get back-to-back wins. We head out against the Bucs, man. But thank you again to everybody. You guys are the best. Thank you guys for all your support on the channel, and we'll see you soon. Have a good one. And make sure you go over to Mike's channel. We're going to be doing the same show next week over there. Mike, let's get out of here.
All right. See you guys.